Chapter 1639. You will naturally know when the time comes. The great elder waved his hand and walked into the sect. It's really strange. The trouble that the immortal king can't solve is actually pointed to a celestial immortal to help. Could it be that the great elder is old and confused? The protector looked at the back of the great elder and scratched his head. Leaving the Chinese sect, Jiangchen took the four people and quickly rushed to the northern region. On the way from the Chinese sect to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there was a town called the Nameless Town. According to legend, thousands of years ago, there was a nameless immortal king living here. This person was open-minded and accepted countless disciples. Some cultivators who knew that their cultivation was not enough to become the nameless immortal king's disciples still gathered here, thinking that maybe one day they would accidentally meet the nameless immortal king and be able to be guided by him, thus breaking through their current cultivation. Therefore, in thousands of years from a small village, it gradually became the largest town on the edge of the eastern region, close to the northern region. Even after the fall of the nameless immortal king, there were still many people living here. Among them, there were countless auctions, schools, and even underground black fists. It could be said that the nameless town during the day and the nameless town at night were completely different places. I didn't expect that the nameless immortal king's reputation would be so resounding. After rushing to the town and hearing Bai Xiaoyan's introduction, Jiangchen couldn't help but sigh. Che, it's just a nameless immortal king. When the emperor of Qinji was alive, this person also came to visit, but at that time, as long as the cultivation base of the immortal king, he was rejected by the immortal king. Little Ape said with some disdain, "Oh, this nameless immortal king also had such a past with the emperor of Qinji?" Jiang Chen's heart of gossip was ignited. The story of this legendary figure was the best topic of conversation after a meal. The two have never even met. Later, the emperor of Qinji heard some of the deeds of the nameless immortal king. He intended to pull him into the Qinji sect, but the nameless immortal king's nameless town was already quite large and could not be left. Little Ape continued, "It was he who passed the message to the nameless immortal king. Why don't we stay here for 2 days and see what the largest town in the eastern region looks like?" Jiang Chen said in a low voice as he looked at the people coming and going and the hubbub of voices around them. What's more, there was an auction here. The items that they obtained from the immortal emperor's tomb could be sold here. This way, even if they returned to the Kunlun celestial mountain empty-handed, it would be easy for them to evade the first mountain lord's questions. It was just that Jiang Chun had been so busy recently that he had forgotten about Xianyu. If he returned empty-handed, he might not even be able to enter the 9th mountain. Ahem, eldest senior brother, take them to find a place to stay first. I have something to deal with. Jiang Chun patted his head and hurriedly walked towards the bustling roadside. What is he going to do? Fire Lotus moved closer to Bai Xiaoyan. Maybe she has some personal matters to deal with. Bai Xiaoyan blushed and took a few steps back, deliberately putting some distance between her and Fire Lotus. Then let's go. After such a long journey, I'm a little tired. Bai Xiaoyan's retreat made Fire Lotus feel a little bored. She raised her eyes and scanned the surroundings. When she saw a hotel nearby, she directly walked over. 5th stage Immortal King. Will you be tired? Bai Xiaoyan asked without any temper. Immortal Monarch, Immortal Monarch. Little Ape added with a gloomy face. This was already a knot in his heart. If not for the disappearance of the immortal emperor's tomb, he would definitely go back and break into the sect's enchantment. He would personally ask the soul of Emperor Qianji why he did this. Walking to a small stall by the roadside, Jiang Chen looked at some small ornaments placed on the stall. How much do these things cost? Jiang Chen glanced at them and picked up a good-looking one. He asked, 3 immortal jades is enough. If you buy more, I'll give you 2 immortal jades each. When the stall owner saw that Jiang Chen was a rich man, he directly said generously, "But brother, to tell you the truth, these are not too good. I have a mysterious crystal amber here. As long as you take it out, no matter which girl it is, they will fall in love with you." How much? Looking at the finger-sized crystal that was constantly flashing with 7-colored glazed light, Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and asked, "Not too much, not too little. Just 50 immortal jades." The stall owner stretched out 5 fingers and waved it in front of Jiang Chun. Not bad. Wrap it up. Jiang Chun directly put it into his storage ring. Then, he took out 50 immortal jades and threw it on the stall. I'll buy one from you. You can give me this, right? No problem, no problem. Take it. The stall owner smiled like a flower. Casually picking up an ornament, Jiang Chun turned and walked towards Bai Xiaoyan. Just as Jiang Chun turned around, the stall owner's smile instantly disappeared. Then, he hammered the stall with force. When he bought the mysterious crystal amber, he only used 5 immortal jades. He wanted to see if he could meet a rich man who didn't know the value of the amber. Although he did earn 45 immortal jades, but from the way Jiang Chun paid without blinking, not to mention 50 immortal jades, he might even take 500 immortal jades. Eldest senior brother, where are they? Seeing that only Bai Xiaoyan was standing here, Jiang Chun looked around and asked. They went to the inn. They said they were a little tired and wanted to rest. Bai Xiaoyan shrugged and replied, I also don't know why an immortal king would be tired. When they came out of the immortal emperor's tomb, they had already lost their immortal king cultivation. Now they're just a mortal monarch. It's understandable that they are in a bad mood. Jiang Chun said helplessly, This Emperor Qianji can control other people's strength? Bai Xiaoyan was a little surprised. Who knows? Jiang Chun shrugged. He wasn't very familiar with Emperor Qianji. When he was in the immortal world, there were a lot of immortal emperors, but at least there were 1 or 2 in each top sect. For a sect like the Tianji sect that only had immortal emperors, Jiang Chun didn't put them in his eyes. In the inn, Jiang Chun booked 2 more rooms and paid for them to stay there for 3 days. After resting in the room for a while, Jiang Chun came out of the room. Just as he opened the door, he saw the waiter. Waiter, come here. I have something to ask you. Jiang Chun waved at him and put 3 immortal jades in his hand. Dear guest, our inn doesn't do such heartless things. Looking at the immortal jades in his hand, the waiter said with a trembling voice. He saw Jiang Chun bring people in with his own eyes. I just want to know where the Nameless Town's auction is. I have some things that I want to exchange for some money. Jiang Chun waved his hand and said with a smile. Chapter 1640. Oh, you're asking about this? If you leave our inn and walk 2 streets east, you'll be at the auction. But it's not time yet, so there's no point for you to go. Hearing that Jiang Chun was asking about something serious, the waiter immediately put the 3 immortal jades into his pocket and said, Why isn't it time yet? Looking at the noisy streets outside, Jiang Chun was a little curious. This is your first time in Nameless Town, right? Let me tell you, the current Nameless Town is no longer the Nameless Town of the past. Don't be fooled by the prosperity of the day. The town's original appearance is at night. There are underground fights, auctions, and as long as you have enough money, you can even kill anyone. The waiter looked around, and seeing that there was no one else around, he dared to continue speaking. If I want to kill an immortal king, can I do it too? Jiang Chun laughed out loud. Brother, don't joke with me. How can you assassinate an immortal king? However, it's still possible for anyone below the immortal monarch realm. Little Fool was taken aback. He obviously didn't expect Jiang Chun to say such a thing. Go to your work. Jiang Chun patted his back. After receiving this news, Jiang Chun returned to his room and prepared to check out the situation at night. When the sky turned dark, Jiang Chun informed Bai Xiaoyan and directly left the inn. He walked in the direction that the waiter said. This was the best place to sell the things in the immortal emperor's tomb. Of course, he left everything that Xin Yu and the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion could use. Behind Jiang Chun, there was a figure following not too far away. Just as the waiter said, when the sky turned dark, the vendors in Nameless Town almost instantly left. The originally bustling streets became silent, and not even a shadow could be seen. Jiang Chun paid attention to the situation around him. After walking 2 streets, the situation in front of him gave him a fright. After walking down this street, he could clearly see that he was in front of a chasm. Looking down, he could only see darkness. There seemed to be some light, but there seemed to be no end to it. The gap was about 12 meters wide. On both sides, People walked down the stone steps and disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Jiangchen was a little curious. Just as he was about to follow the group down, his clothes were pulled. "Feng Yu?" Turning around and seeing the person behind him, Jiangchen asked in surprise, "Weren't you resting in the inn? Why did you follow me here?" "I just want to follow you." Bai Feng Yu raised her eyebrows at him. "So be it." Looking at the surrounding situation, Jiang Chun did not chase Bai Feng Yu back. Most of the people in the chasm were around the immortal realm. Occasionally, there would be a few true immortals or heavenly immortals. With him around, Bai Feng Yu would not encounter any danger. "Yes. Master, why do you think this place is so strange? Why are all these people going down?" Seeing Jiang Chen agree, Bai Feng Yu smiled. "I don't know. The inn's waiter said that there's an auction here. I want to sell some of the things in the immortal emperor's tomb." Jiang Chen shook his head. He was also very curious about this place. Following behind those people, Jiang Chen brought her down the chasm. When they were completely in the chasm, Jiang Chen discovered that not only was there a chasm, there were many caves on both sides. The stone steps led to these caves. There were also light and sounds coming from inside. "Looks like this nameless town has a special winter." Seeing this, Jiangchen could not help but laugh. "Why do I feel that it's so eerie?" Bai Feng Yu tugged at her clothes and looked around vigilantly. "This place is completely different from the day. Why don't we go back?" "Don't. This kind of auction is the best place to sell the things in the immortal emperor's tomb." Jiang Chen shook his head. Even though Nameless Town was in the eastern region, the cultivation of the people here was too low. Not to mention entering the immortal emperor's tomb, they might not even have the chance to hear the news. If he sold the things like this, they would not even know who he was. This would also prevent those sects in the eastern region from targeting him and trying to take advantage of him. They stepped into the cave from the stone steps. A rotten smell assailed their nostrils. Bai Feng Yu covered her mouth and nose. She could not bear the smell here. Jiangchen was still fine. Looking at the large area and the people who were busy shouting, Jiangchen knew that Nameless Town's nightlife had just begun. "The two of you look a little unfamiliar. You're not from the town, right?" As soon as they entered, a half-naked muscular man who looked like he was wearing some kind of beast skin stopped Jiangchen at the door. He sized him up before asking, "I'm from the eastern region's Zhou clan. I heard that there's such an auction in Nameless Town, so I specially came to take a look." Jiangchen smiled at him and casually made up an identity. "Which Zhou clan in the eastern region? What's your name? Are you here to sell or buy things? If you want to watch the show, you have to pay 100 immortal jades as a seat fee." "Who is this girl to you?" The muscular man sized up Jiangchen and Bai Feng Yu and asked. "Little Zhou clan. I'm called Zhou Zhuang. I'm here to watch the show. I also have some things to sell. If I see something good, I'll also sell it." "This is my..." Jiangchen did not even blink. He directly took out 200 immortal jades and handed it over. "I'm his wife." Bai Feng Yu found the right opportunity and spoke first. Jiangchen's hand trembled as he handed over the money. However, thinking that it was just an identity, he did not care too much about it. On the other hand, Bai Feng Yu's face was full of smiles. Her eyes were curved, and even her cheeks were a little red. "It's really strange. How can an ugly person like you have such a beautiful wife?" The muscular man seemed to be a little dissatisfied. After staring at Jiang Chun for a while, he put away the immortal jades and walked inside, muttering as he walked. "Master, he said you're ugly." Bai Feng Yu covered her mouth and chuckled. "If you're ugly, then so be it. Anyway, it doesn't affect you." Jiang Chun rolled his eyes at her. Then he followed behind the muscular man and walked inside. Even though it was a cave dug out from the cliff, the space inside was not small. When they walked inside, Jiang Chun even saw a fighting ring. There were many onlookers around, and from time to time, there would be cheers. The two people in the ring were fighting to the death. Occasionally, there would even be a slight fluctuation of immortal chi. "Master, if the nameless immortal king knew that his nameless town had become like this, what would he think?" Along the way, the smile on Bai Feng Yu's face gradually disappeared. It was replaced by a frown, as if she could not accept the situation here. If not for wanting to follow Jiang Chun, she would have definitely turned around and left. Chapter 1641. The nameless immortal king had already fallen a few thousand years ago. Originally, Nameless Town was a town formed by cultivators to pursue him. There was no order to speak of. Of course, there would be chaos after his death. However, although this place is chaotic, it should have formed a kind of abnormal order. Jiang Chun explained to Bai Fengyu in a low voice. Although most of the cultivators here were only immortals, in such a town, there would definitely be experts. It was just that they were hidden in the dark and were not discovered by ordinary people. What a pity! Thinking of the nameless immortal king, Bai Fengyu felt a little uncomfortable. The burly man brought Jiang Chun and Bai Fengyu to the auction stage and pointed to a few stone stools. The two of you, please wait for an hour. The auction is about to begin. If you have anything you want to sell, go to that room. The person inside will give you a price. If you don't want to buy, just sit here and watch. You are not allowed to walk around. Otherwise, I will throw you into the chasm. This big brother, I'm a little curious. How did this chasm form? Jiang Chun naturally did not want to touch it. Before coming down, he had suppressed his cultivation back to true Immortal Stage 3. You don't even know this? Seeing that you are more sensible, I will tell you. A few thousand years ago, the nameless immortal king once fought with an expert from another region for several months. This chasm is the evidence of their battle. The burly man looked at Jiang Chun as if he was an idiot. He waved his hand and directly said it. Thank you. Jiang Chun nodded and thanked him. After sitting here for a while, Jiang Chun brought Bai Fengyu to the room the burly man pointed to. Pushing open the door, an old man wearing a hemp robe was sitting inside. His hair was white and his eyes were cloudy. He looked like he had one foot in the coffin. Selling things? Hearing the sound of the door opening, the old man raised his head. Jiang Chun nodded. Stranger, you have never been to Nameless Town before, have you? Take out your stuff, and I'll appraise it for you. If it's good, I'll sell it tonight. If it's not good, you can just take it and leave. The old man extended his hand toward Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun didn't hesitate and poured all the useless things he got from the immortal emperor's tomb onto the table. Seeing the table full of scrolls and wooden boxes, the old man's turbid eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Kid, tell me the truth. Where did you get these things? The old man casually flipped through a few pages and then looked up at Jiang Chun in surprise. They're all ours. Before Jiang Chun could speak, Bai Fengyu spoke first. You're just a little girl. How did you get these things at home? The old man began to scrutinize Bai Fengyu again. Could it be that you're a young miss from some big family? My family didn't agree to our previous marriage contract, and that was why I stole all of these things from my family and planned to sell them for immortal jade so that we can live on in the future. Bai Fengyu spoke calmly before Jiang Chun's startled gaze. I understand. The old man was, after all, someone who had lived for dozens of years. Hearing Bai Fengyu's words, he understood the meaning behind it. So how much can these things be sold for? Bai Fengyu pointed at the table and asked. The auction in Nameless Town has its own rules. Even though your stuff isn't bad, you won't be able to sell them for a high price here. This pile is 20,000 immortal jades for one, and this pile is 50,000 immortal jades for one. Are you okay with that? The old man quickly sorted out the items. Yes, no problem. Jiang Chun immediately agreed. These things were snatched from Cho Wanli and Zhou Yuanxing. If they could be sold for this price, Jiang Chun could accept it. In any case, keeping them would take up space, so he might as well sell them directly. If all of these were sold, he estimated that he could get over 1 million immortal jade. All right, then you can go out and wait. The old man took out a notebook and then waved his hand at Jiang Chun. After leaving the room, Bai Fengyu said somewhat anxiously, Master, if these things were sold at a regular auction, they could be sold for at least tens of millions of immortal jade. Now that they've shrunk by so much, we've lost too much. These things were plundered from the two sect masters of the Azure Qilin sect and the Thousand Beast sect in the Immortal Emperor's tomb. If they were sold at a regular auction, someone might recognize them and cause trouble. If they were sold here, even if they were discovered by the two sects, they wouldn't have any evidence to suspect us. Jiang Chun said to her with a faint smile. So that's how it is. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Bai Fengyu understood. As for the other things, they're all stored in my storage ring. When we return to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, you can take whatever you like. With that, Jiang Chun sat back on the stone bench. In less than an hour, the auction had already begun. Compared to a regular auction, this place was obviously more chaotic. What Jiang Chun didn't expect was that his things were actually the first to be taken out. The moment those low-grade immortal techniques, herbs, and weapons appeared, they attracted everyone's attention. Don't look at how these were all trash to Jiang Chun. Most of the people here were immortals, with the highest being true immortals or golden immortals. They were rare treasures. Soon, Jiang Chen's hundreds of auction items were sold one by one. Among them, the lowest price was 50,000, while the highest was 200,000. Damn it! Hearing this price, Jiang Chun was a little unwilling. It had always been him who took advantage of others. When did he let others take advantage of him? After a rough calculation, he had only earned 3 million immortal jade, while the organizer of the auction had earned nearly 10 million immortal jade. This kind of profitable business made Jiang Chun have an impulse to stay here. Master, you're so greedy. Bai Fengyu couldn't help but ridicule. Forget it, forget it. After all, they didn't get it through the proper channels. If it's a little less, then it's a little less. What's more, if these things are discovered by the people of the Qinglin sect and the Wanshou sect in the future, they will attract a fatal disaster. Jiang Chun took a deep breath and could only swallow all the unhappiness back into his stomach. About 2 hours later, all of Jiang Chen's things were sold. Taking advantage of these people's attention to the next auction item, Jiang Chun went into the room. Looking at the promissory note of 1.5 million immortal jade, Jiang Chun couldn't help but ridicule. Old mister, you're really greedy. This is the rule of our auction. Moreover, I told you in advance, so it can't be considered as cheating you. The old man put the thick stack of promissory notes into the drawer and smiled at Jiang Chun. Chapter 1642. All right, then I'll accept the celestial jades. Jiang Chun didn't care about this, since he had gotten it for free anyway. After keeping the celestial jades, Jiang Chun left the room. Brother Zhou Zhuang, if you have any good things in the future, you're welcome to come to our auction again. The price is negotiable. Seeing Jiang Chun leave, the old man hurriedly said, if this kind of person came a few times, then they would soon become Ganji's Bank's VIP guests. Jiang Chun didn't reply. After selling Zhou Yuansheng and Chou Wanli's things, Nameless Town probably wouldn't return. 3 million celestial jades. Walking in front of Bai Fengyu, Jiang Chun stretched out 3 fingers and shook them at her. Let's go. We've sold everything. There's nothing good here anyway. Let's go back and rest. We'll be on the road tomorrow. Bai Fengyu lightly nodded. Just as the two of them turned to leave, a shoe flew straight at Jiang Chen's head. Pa! The shoe hit Jiang Chen's head right on time. Master. Bai Fengyu immediately became vigilant. Nothing. Jiang Chen frowned. After patting his hair, he looked down and saw that the shoe on the ground was only the size of a palm. With one look, he could tell that it belonged to a little girl. Turning his head, Jiang Chen saw that on the stage not far from him, a little girl was curled up in a corner, shivering. She had already lost one of her shoes. The other one was obviously the same as the one that hit his head, and in front of the little girl, there was a very sturdy man. Seeing Jiang Chun looking over, the muscular man waved his fist at Jiang Chun and scolded him in disdain. What are you looking at? Hurry up and scram. If you look again, I'll kill you. Interesting. Jiang Chen's frown eased, and a smile slowly appeared on his face. Didn't you hear me? I told you to get lost. Jiang Chen stood still, which made the brawny man even more angry. He was known as the king of duels here, and everyone who came here was respectful to him. There had never been someone like Jiang Chun who dared to treat his words as wind passing by, and even dared to look at him with such eyes. Wait here for a moment, Jiang Chun instructed Bai Fengyu in a low voice before walking towards the arena. All right. Bai Fengyu's reply was very straightforward. She knew that Jiang Chun wouldn't be in any danger here. Even if everyone were to stack up, they wouldn't be Jiang Chen's match. Walking to the side of the arena, Jiang Chen looked at the little girl who was curled up in the corner. He couldn't help but feel some heartache. Sending such a child here was no different from sending her to her death. Brad, it seems like you want to die today, right? The brawny man stared at Jiang Chen. How did that shoe fly over? Jiang Chen asked calmly. No one has ever dared to talk to me like that. The brawny man was infuriated by Jiang Chen's words. He directly waved his fist and hammered at Jiang Chen's abdomen. With his cultivation of the 6th level of true immortal, he naturally didn't put Jiang Chen in his eyes. The moment he made his move, cheers rang out. It had been a long time since a battle between true immortals had appeared here. For a moment, many people stared at the arena excitedly. Some people even began to bet on the outcome of the battle. However, before they could place their bets, the brawny man who rushed over was slapped down by Jiang Chen with a light wave of his hand. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Wow! Suddenly, there was an uproar around the arena. Everyone stared at Jiang Chen with their eyes wide open. This sudden turn of events had caught them off guard. The king of single fights of the underground Black Fist had been beaten into such a state so easily. What's your name? Jiang Chen retracted his immortal power and slowly squatted in front of the little girl. Looking at her frightened expression, he asked with a smile. My name is Hikari, the little girl said in a trembling voice. Where's your family? Why are you practicing hay boxing here? Jiang Chen reached out and pulled her up. I don't have parents. It was my adoptive parents who sent me here. The little girl seemed to be frightened by Jiang Chen's strength just now. Even though she was grabbed by the sleeve, she still shrank back. Sent you here? Jiang Chen was a little stunned. But at this moment, a middle-aged man with a big belly walked into the arena. As soon as he came up, he directly reached out to push Jiang Chen and scolded, Brat, who told you to care about the matters here? Hurry up and get lost. Don't delay me from making money. Otherwise, I'll make you leave here lying down. You're her adoptive father? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. That's right. I'm her adoptive father. The middle-aged man put his hands on his hips. Such a young child. You let her practice hay boxing here. What if something happens? Jiang Chen pulled the little girl behind him and looked at him. What does it have to do with you? Don't cause trouble here. Hurry up and go back to where you came from. The middle-aged man reached out to grab Jiang Chen's arm. He wanted his adopted daughter to practice hay boxing here, so that the men here would be excited and satisfy their almost abnormal desires. If his adopted daughter didn't practice hay boxing, she wouldn't be able to support his daily expenses. Now that Jiang Chen suddenly appeared to change his life, of course he wasn't willing. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to leave with me? Jiang Chen didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he looked down at the little girl behind him and asked softly, Leave with you. The little girl glanced at her fiendish adoptive father and immediately hugged Jiang Chen's thigh. Although she was young, she wasn't stupid. She knew that if she continued to stay here, there would be a day where she would die on the stage. But if she left with Jiang Chen, she might be able to live. Okay, from today onwards, you will follow me. With me here, no one will be able to hurt you. Jiang Chen directly grabbed her little hand and walked down the stage, ignoring the middle-aged man in front of him. You think you can take her away just because you said so? The middle-aged man waved his hand, and a few men wearing black robes appeared behind him. Feng Yu, wait for me outside. Jiang Chen directly hugged the little girl to his chest and said softly to Bai Fengyu. After Bai Fengyu left, Jiang Chen's gentle expression disappeared, and a boundless, immortal power erupted from him. The people standing in front of him were blown away, and they were sent flying. They crashed through the cave's gate and fell into the chasm. The hundreds of spectators were so frightened that they didn't dare to speak. They didn't dare to provoke such a powerful person. Follow me. Jiang Chen took 2 steps forward, picked up the shoe that fell on the ground, and put it on the little girl. After that, he carried her and walked out of the cave. Everyone behind stared at Jiang Chen's back view, but no one dared to stop him. If we can keep him here to practice hay boxing, then our Blood Wolf gang wouldn't have to lose a single immortal jade. In a dark corner, a bearded man sat on a chair and said while touching the soft waist of the girl beside him, Chapter 1643. But his strength is around the third level of the heaven immortal realm. With our people, I'm afraid that we won't be able to control him, right? A confidant said, there will always be a way. The bearded man sneered. After leaving with the little girl, Jiang Chen and Bai Fengyu walked up the stone steps. Hikari, how old are you? Jiang Chen looked at the little girl in his embrace. In a trance, he had a feeling that he was looking at his own daughter. However, this was just a momentary illusion. 12 years old, Hikari said softly. In the future, just follow behind me. You can call me Big Brother or Master. As for those foster parents who used you to earn money, forget about them. Jiang Chen put her down and held her hand as they walked towards the inn. Bai Fengyu quietly followed by the side. When the three of them walked together, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but reveal a smile. This feeling was like a family of three, making her feel very warm. In the inn, when Jiang Chen entered, he saw Bai Xiaoyan sitting in the middle of the living room with his eyes closed. Where did you go? Bai Xiaoyan exited from his cultivation state. But before he could finish his words, he saw the little girl behind Jiang Chen. He was instantly shocked and quickly asked, Junior brother, you couldn't have gone to abduct a child, right? No, this is a little girl that I saved from the underground fighting. In the future, she could be considered as my disciple. Jiang Chen faintly smiled and pulled the little girl to the front of Bai Xiaoyan. Hikari, let me introduce you. This is Bai Xiaoyan. According to seniority, you should call him Martial Uncle. Jiang Chen pointed at Bai Xiaoyan and said, Martial Uncle. Hikari's eyes were timid, but she still listened to Jiang Chen's words. AI, why do I feel like she's your child when I hear you call her Martial Uncle? As soon as Bai Xiaoyan agreed, she clearly felt that something was wrong. Cough, cough, don't speak nonsense. Jiang Chen awkwardly coughed twice. Not only Bai Xiaoyan, but he also had this premonition in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. Hikari, her name is Bai Fengyu. She will be your senior sister in the future. In the future, if I am not by your side, you can look for her directly if you have any problems. Jiang Chen pointed at Bai Fengyu and said, Senior sister. Perhaps it was because they were both females, but Hikari was clearly closer to Bai Fengyu. Junior sister. Hikari made Bai Fengyu giggle. She leaned forward and carried the little girl in front of her. Then, she took out a jade pendant from her storage ring. This is a gift from senior sister. Remember to keep it with you. Thank you, senior sister. Hikari nodded and thanked her. Then, she wore the jade pendant in front of her chest. Well, I've finished introducing you. Let's leave here early tomorrow morning. I still have things to do after I return to Kunlun Mountain. Jiang Chen patted Hikari's head, then looked at Bai Xiaoyan and Bai Fengyu and said faintly, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to leave. Bai Xiaoyan was just about to nod her head when she immediately frowned. You're really haunting me. Jiang Chen also quickly sensed that something was wrong. Did you offend someone when you went out this time? Bai Xiaoyan stretched out her hand, and a white long sword appeared in her hand. Even her robes fluttered without any wind. In order to save this girl, we did offend someone. But I didn't expect that an immortal king would come here. Jiang Chen gave Bai Fengyu a look and said softly. Bai Fengyu also hugged Hikari and retreated 2 steps, leaning against the wall. Just as Jiang Chen summoned the lightning longsword, the door of the room was fiercely kicked open. Zhou Zhuang, you attacked the stage. Come back with us now. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave Nameless Town alive. The one standing at the door was the bearded man who was sitting in the dark corner of the cave. At this moment, there was a first-layer immortal king behind him. It seemed like he was prepared to take down Jiang Chen. Who is Zhou Zhuang? Bai Xiaoyan was confused. It's a name I casually came up with. Jiang Chen said indifferently. I thought it was a first-layer immortal king, so it's just a first layer. Before I get angry, kneel down and apologize. Then get out of here. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will disappear without a trace in Nameless Town. Bai Xiaoyan's expression became serious. She pointed the long sword in her hand at them and snorted coldly. Who are you? The bearded man looked at Bai Xiaoyan. Zhou Dazhuang. Bai Xiaoyan said casually. A first-layer immortal king backing you. How dare you come here to find trouble with me? After saying that, Bai Xiaoyan released her aura. Her cultivation of the third layer Immortal King spread out. After this fluctuation spread out, the two rooms opposite the door suddenly opened. Little Ape and Huafu both walked out. A third layer Immortal King and two Immortal Monarchs. Brother, son, didn't you say that there was only a kid with the cultivation of a celestial immortal? When the expert at the first stage of the Immortal King realm sensed such immortal energy, he was so scared that his legs went soft. Not to mention that these two powers were inferior to his immortal monarch. Even this Immortal King was not a match for him. Once they fought, he would definitely lose his life in less than 5 minutes. I don't know either. The bearded man's arrogance disappeared completely. Tell me, how do you want to solve this? If I'm not satisfied, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to leave here alive. Bai Xiaoyan held the long sword in her hand and pointed at the bearded man. Brother, we must have misunderstood. It's all my fault for having a sudden brain attack tonight. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here, the bearded man said with a bitter face. Who would have thought that there would be such an expert in this small, nameless town? Kneel down, kowtow, and apologize. Then get out of here. Don't let me see you again. Bai Xiaoyan completely ignored his words. No problem, no problem. The bearded man did not hesitate. He directly knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily. However, the Immortal King behind him was not the same. First of all, he was only hired by the bearded man to come here. Secondly, he was at the first layer of the Immortal King realm. In the entire nameless town, his cultivation and strength were ranked in the top 3. Once he knelt here and the news spread, he would probably no longer have the face to stay in Nameless Town in the future. What about you? Bai Xiaoyan looked at him. I won't kneel to you. The Immortal King shook his head with all his might. If he had to kneel here, he might as well kill him directly. Brother, the responsibility is all on me. The Immortal King doesn't know anything. He just followed me here. The bearded man hurriedly said. He didn't dare to offend the Immortal King. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive in Nameless Town in the future. You're not going to kneel, are you? Bai Xiaoyan's expression was stern as she swung out a sword chi. The Immortal King's hair stood on end as he hurriedly activated the immortal power in his body to defend himself. Chapter 1644. However, how could he withstand Bai Xiaoyan's attack? Even though he was prepared, he was still sent flying by the immortal power and crashed into the wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and all his defenses dissipated in an instant. The bearded man knelt on the ground, his legs trembling, and he didn't dare to look back. He knew that he had kicked an iron plate today. Get out! Jiang Chun pointed at the door and said indifferently. Okay, I'll get out now. The bearded man immediately stood up as if he had received a special pardon. He cupped his hands at Jiang Chun and was about to leave. Wait, Bai Xiaoyan suddenly said. Lord Immortal King, is there anything else? The bearded man's entire body trembled. He revealed a smile that was even uglier than crying and turned to look at Bai Xiaoyan. I told you to get out, not to walk out. Don't you understand? Bai Xiaoyan flipped her hand and dissipated the long sword. Then, she crossed her arms and said, Get out, I'll get out. The bearded man didn't dare to say no. He hurriedly lay on the ground and rolled out of the door. Who would have thought that a celestial immortal would be protected by an immortal lord and immortal king? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Fortunately, it was at night. Otherwise, if word got out, he wouldn't be able to survive in Nameless Town in the future. The bearded man rolled out of the room and rolled to the end of the corridor, disappearing around the corner. How are you going to deal with this immortal king? Bai Xiaoyan looked at the person in the corridor and asked Jiang Chun. You're an immortal king. Why are you following behind an immortal? Under the gaze of the few people, Jiang Chun walked to his side and squatted down to ask. I live in Nameless Town. I usually take on some missions to make a living. With Bai Xiaoyan here, the immortal king didn't dare to speak carelessly. A dignified immortal king is actually a bounty hunter here. How interesting. Hearing his words, Jiang Chun laughed. However, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. He raised his head and glanced at Little Ape standing at the side. He seemed to have heard this from him before. There's nothing I can do about it. I used to be an elder of a sect in the eastern region. Later on, I violated the sect's rules and escaped. I can only live here. The immortal king sighed. It had been hundreds of years since he said this, but until now he still didn't dare to take a step out of the nameless town, afraid that the law enforcers of the sect would come looking for him. Oh, what sect? Jiangchen was curious. During this period of time in the eastern region, he had some understanding of the sects in the eastern region. Thousand Harmonies sect. The immortal king raised his head and saw that Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaoyan were completely unfamiliar faces. Only then did he dare to tell the truth. Hearing this, Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaoyan looked at each other. I have some old acquaintances with your great elder Su Qian. I don't know what sect rules you have violated. If it is serious, I may have to bring you back. Jiang Chun held his forehead and said somewhat helplessly. He did not expect that things would be so coincidental. Big brother, I have lived in a nameless town for hundreds of years. I have nothing to do with the Thousand Harmonies sect. Moreover, I was framed back then. I have to break the rules. The immortal king hurriedly begged for mercy. The Thousand Harmonies sect was his current nightmare. If it weren't for someone asking, he wouldn't have mentioned it at all. What trap? Bai Xiaoyan asked in a gossipy manner. Back then, when our sect master just went into seclusion, the sect was divided into two factions. One faction was led by great elder Su Qian. He wanted the sect to continue to develop steadily until the sect master came out of seclusion. The other faction was the punishment elder of the sect. He wanted to usurp the position of sect master. At that time, I was subordinate to the punishment elder. I didn't expect him to dare to go against the sect. I unknowingly did something that hurt the sect, so after the incident, I hurriedly fled the sect and never returned. The immortal king sighed heavily. These words had been in his heart for hundreds of years. Now that he finally had the chance to say them, he felt very relaxed. What about the punishment elder? Thinking about how Elder Su Qian had helped him so much, Jiang Chen was still quite concerned about the matters of the Thousand Harmonies sect. I don't know. He might have escaped like me, but for hundreds of years, I've never heard of his whereabouts. Of course, it's also possible that he was secretly executed by the sect. The immortal king shook his head. All right, I choose to believe your words. Jiang Chen pondered for a moment and said, Then can you not send me back to the sect? I already have no face to go back. Moreover, hundreds of years have passed, and the sect has already undergone earth-shattering changes. If I go back now, it's no different from sending me to my death. The immortal king raised his head and begged for mercy. You can continue to live here, but there is one thing. If I want to know about the situation here in the future, you must tell me the truth. Otherwise, I will tell great elder Su Qian about your matter. You know that with his strength, no matter where you escape to, he can find you. Jiang Chen said with a faint smile. No problem, I promise you. Hearing Jiang Chen's promise, the immortal king quickly agreed. Go. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Jiang Chen waved at him and returned to the room. After the immortal king left, Little Ape and Hua Fu also followed in. Master, I think we should tell great elder Su Qian about this matter. During the time we were in the eastern region, he took care of us a lot. By phone, you took Hikari's hand and walked in front of Jiang Chun and said softly, Phone you, do you think that with Grand Elder Su Qian's strength, he wouldn't know that he was here? Jiang Chun shook his head, smiled, and said, He's an expert who isn't any weaker than the three immortal kings. Ah, then why did he allow this person to escape from the sect for hundreds of years? By phone, you didn't react for a moment. He should know, but he disdains to pursue the responsibility. Bai Xiaoyan continued, That's right. Moreover, we have offended a lot of people in the eastern region this time. If we only rely on the Qianese sect, I'm afraid we don't know everything. If we let him go now, we will know some things about the eastern region in the future. People come and go in the nameless town. Who knows what kind of people are there? Jiang Chen nodded and agreed with Bai Xiaoyan. It's my fault for not thinking it through. By phone, you smiled embarrassedly. Let's rest for the night and return to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain tomorrow. Jiang Chen waved his hand and didn't think too much about this matter. The earlier they went back, the earlier they could start cultivating. Only by increasing their strength could they have the opportunity to go to the unknown areas of the immortal world and find the whereabouts of their mother. Yes, Everyone nodded in unison. Hikari, you sleep with Fengyu. Jiangchen squatted down and touched the little girl's head. I know, master. Hikari smiled sweetly. Chapter 1645. All right, Fengyu, before we leave tomorrow, take her to buy a few sets of clothes. Seeing that Hikari was still wearing those tattered clothes, Jiangchen handed Bai Fengyu a promissory note and said, Okay, got it? Bai Fengyu accepted it and brought Hikari back to her room. The next day, after everyone woke up, they did not waste any time and immediately left the nameless town. Looking in the direction of the northern region, not far behind Jiangchen and the others, a figure was following behind them. If one looked carefully, they would be able to tell that this person was the young sect master of Tianlang Mountain, Kuyu. However, his current situation was completely different from before. His entire aura was low. Every time he followed them, he would choose to hide in the shadows and observe. When he was in the nameless town, someone had discovered his figure, but they were all dealt with in the shortest amount of time. At this moment, Kuyu was hiding in the forest, his pair of pitch-black eyes staring at Jiangchen's back. After nearly a day, everyone returned to Kunlun Celestial Mountain. In front of the mountain gate, a beautiful figure stood there. Qingmu. After seeing who it was, Jiangchen asked in surprise, Why are you here instead of staying in the 9th mountain? Master guessed that you would come back today, so he specially asked me to welcome you here. He said that he was afraid that you would be beaten to death by those people in Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Qingmu pursed her lips and smiled. The people she was talking about were naturally the group of people who had been tricked by Jiangchen. How did Qianyu know that I would come back today? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows at her. How would I know about master's matters? However, Martial Granduncle, I have to tell you that the first mountain lord told master everything about you in the eastern region. You're probably going to be in trouble. Qingmu blinked and turned her head away, avoiding looking at Jiangchen's gaze. Cough, cough, so what if she knows? I didn't fool around. Jiangchen coughed awkwardly. In this life, he did not dare to offend Qianyu. Otherwise, if she slapped him, his cultivation would be crippled and he would have to lie in bed for the rest of his life. Where are they? Qianyu pointed at the girls behind Jiangchen. Since when was it your turn to give me pointers? Jiangchen originally wanted to explain, but he suddenly realized that he was Qingmu's martial granduncle. How could he explain to her? Qingmu stuck out his tongue and walked straight into the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Behind her, Huafu shrugged. With her sharp eyes, she could see that this girl had some feelings for Jiangchen. However, due to her identity, she couldn't show it. After entering the 9th mountain, Jiangchen arranged accommodations for them and hurried over to Xianyu's place. Looking at the beautiful figure in the room, Jiangchen held the crystal amber he had prepared in advance in his hand and quietly walked over. When Jiangchen got close to her, he could smell the faint fragrance coming from her body. Hence, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her slender waist, burying his head in her neck. 9th Mountain Lord, I missed you so much. Xianyu originally wanted to question Jiangchen, but after being touched like this, her entire body went numb. She turned around and used all her strength to push Jiangchen away. Then, she asked angrily, I heard from the first mountain lord that you've caused a lot of trouble in the eastern region. It's all settled. Jiangchen didn't want to bring these things to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, so he casually said, Nonsense. What's going on with the Black sect leader? Why would a sect from another region attack you? Xianyu didn't believe Jiangchen's words at all. In her opinion, Jiangchen was a scumbag who didn't speak the truth. It's a long story. I'll explain it to you when we have time in the future. But this time, I brought you something good. Jiangchen opened his hand, revealing the shining, glazed crystal amber in his palm. I spent a lot of money to buy this gemstone from an auction. In the entire eastern region, there are less than 5 people who have it. Jiangchen, have you been in the lower realm for too long that your brain is damaged? Xianyu was touched. She was about to throw herself into Jiangchen's arms and act like a spoiled child, but when she saw what Jiangchen was holding in his hand, she lost all interest in him. She said, feeling both annoyed and amused. What's wrong? Jiangchen was a little surprised. What glazed crystal amber? This is just the most ordinary gemstone. I just injected some immortal energy into it. If you want, I can turn the entire ninth mountain into glazed crystal amber." Xian Yu laughed coldly. Jiang Qin's words had touched her, but what he did made him look like a fool. "Pa, maybe I'm confused." Jiang Qin slapped his forehead and sighed in his heart. As expected, this kind of low-level method could only win the favor of little girls. He couldn't fool someone like Xian Yu, who had seen the world. "Qing Mu, don't listen. Come in." Jiang Qin looked at the door and said loudly, "Master, Martial Granduncle, I'm not eavesdropping. I just want to see if you need me to do anything." Qing Mu lowered her head and came in. She didn't dare to look up at Xian Yu. "This glazed crystal amber is for you. And these accessories, I specially brought them back for you." Jiang Qin directly placed the gemstone in Qing Mu's hand and poured out all the accessories from his storage ring into Qing Mu's hand. Looking at these shiny things, Qing Mu's face instantly turned red. She wanted them, but she knew the relationship between Jiang Qin and Xian Yu. For a moment, she was stunned on the spot, not knowing whether to refuse or take them away. "Young master gave them to you. Just take them." Xian Yu saw that Qing Mu was uncomfortable, so she gently waved her jade-like hand and said, "Thank you, Martial Granduncle." "Thank you, master." Qing Mu couldn't help but burst into laughter. She held the gemstones and quickly left the room. She also closed the door tightly. "Since you don't want to tell me about the Black Sect master, then tell me about the girls you brought back. What are their identities? I see that there's even a teenage girl. Your taste can't be so heavy, right?" Hearing the sound of the door closing, Xian Yu couldn't help but ask Jiang Qin. "The little girl is the disciple I just accepted. The one dressed in white with a transcendent aura is by Feng Yu, my disciple who just ascended from the lower realms. The other one is Hua Fu, the eldest miss of the bathing phoenix race. Our relationship is very pure." Jiang Qin was somewhat helpless and could only explain. "Really?" Xian Yu blinked her eyes. "Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you?" Jiang Qin sat on Xian Yu's bed and took the opportunity to touch her thigh a few times. That tender and smooth feeling caused Jiang Qin's mind to ripple, and he almost couldn't control himself. "Lecture." Xian Yu seemed to have been electrocuted as she took a few steps back. "All right, I came back this time because I have a serious matter to ask you." Jiang Qin coughed lightly and said. Chapter 1646. "What's the matter?" Xian Yu asked seriously. "Do you know that there's an Emperor Qianji in the immortal worlds?" Jiang Qin coughed lightly. "I've heard of him, but I think he's an immortal emperor from a few thousand years ago." Xian Yu recalled carefully. After a while, she said, "You went to the East Domain this time and entered the tomb of this immortal emperor. Could it be that you obtained some inheritance?" Jiang Qin sighed and said, "I did obtain a few immortal techniques. As for the inheritance, I guess you can say so." Thinking about the map that Emperor Qianji gave him, the figure of that woman appeared in Jiang Qin's mind. Even though it had been so long, he still felt as though he was electrocuted when he looked into her eyes. There are many immortal techniques in the ninth mountain. You should hurry up and raise your cultivation level. The immortal world now is completely different from when you were in it. If you want to regain your previous status, the Kunlun Immortal Mountain can only give you a small amount of help. Moreover, not all the mountain lords support you. Looking at Jiang Qin, Xian Yu couldn't help but speak her mind. "Let's deal with the problem in front of us first." Jiang Qin waved his hand. "The sect leader of the Black Sect?" Xian Yu immediately understood his thoughts. "Yes, I don't have any impression of this sect. Moreover, that person's cultivation level is probably not lower than the 3 immortal kings. He might even be higher. If I don't deal with this problem, I will be greatly restricted in the immortal world." Jiang Qin frowned. He didn't hide anything in front of Xian Yu. When the first mountain lord told me about this, he also told me that he had already sent out all the informants of the first mountain to help you find out more about this person. Xian Yu sat beside Jiang Qin. "They probably won't be able to find out anything." Jiang Qin took the opportunity to pull Xian Yu into his arms. "We're talking about something. Can you be more serious?" Xian Yu's face turned red. She couldn't reject Jiang Qin's strong arms. However, she was afraid that things would get worse, so she could only remind him softly. There's nothing more serious than what I'm about to do. Jiang Chen revealed a cheeky smile. He reached out his hand and was about to grab Xian Yu's clothes. Boom! Just as Xian Yu was about to close her eyes and endure, there was a sudden noise at the door. She hurriedly extricated herself from Jiang Chen's embrace. The Lord of the First Mountain knew that Jiang Chen had returned. Hence, he specially asked me to pay you a visit and invite you to the First Mountain to discuss some matters. An old voice sounded from the door. It was the elder of the First Mountain, Jian Yun. He was also the elder who had brought Jiang Chen to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Lil Jian, long time no see. Jiang Chen let go of Xian Yu and walked straight to the door. When he pushed the door open and saw the old man in front of him, he said with a smile, "Wang, Jiang Chen, pay attention to your current status. You're a disciple who has been expelled from the Ninth Mountain. You'd better show me some respect." Jian Yun was so infuriated by Jiang Chen's words that he almost fainted. "Okay, little sword, I'll be careful." Jiang Chen waved his hand and walked past him. "The Lord of the Ninth Mountain, it's him." Jian Yun hurriedly looked at Xian Yu, who was inside. He could accept being called Lil Jian by Qing Mu. However, Jiang Chen had just ascended from the lower world and was weak. If it wasn't for his previous status, he would have punched him the moment he called him Lil Jian. "Lil Jian? What did the Lord of the First Mountain say?" Xian Yu didn't care about this at all. He just wants you and Jiang Chen to make a trip there. Hearing Xian Yu's words, Jian Yun completely calmed down. When the three of them reached the peak of the Ninth Mountain, Jian Yun gently waved his hand. An immortal crane flew out from the clouds and landed on the peak of the mountain. Thinking about what happened when they went to fetch Jiang Chen, Jian Yun couldn't help but say, "Jiang Chen, you're not allowed to hurt it this time. It's not easy for the First Mountain to nurture immortal cranes. If you hurt it again, I'm afraid the Lord of the First Mountain will not let you off easily." "Okay." Jiang Chen relaxed his shoulders and sat cross-legged on the back of the immortal crane. A few minutes later, the immortal crane flapped its wings and flew towards the First Mountain. When it arrived at the First Mountain, many disciples raised their heads to take a look. Although Jiang Chen's reputation had long spread throughout the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there were a total of 3,000 disciples in the First Mountain. Some of them had only heard of Jiang Chen, but had never seen him in person. Under the gaze of these people, the immortal crane slowly landed on the peak of the First Mountain. "You're quite famous in our First Mountain." Looking at the disciples gathered at the foot of the mountain, Jian Yun glanced at Jiang Chen and said with a wry smile, "I'm not interested in your First Mountain." Jiang Chen shook his head. He didn't want to see the Lord of the First Mountain all day long. "I wonder how many people would want to enter the First Mountain." Hearing the disdain in Jiang Chen's voice, Jian Yun tried his best to save some face for the First Mountain. In a room on the peak of the mountain, the Lord of the First Mountain was sitting inside. The three of them walked in side by side. The few disciples who were originally standing inside immediately cupped their fists towards the Lord of the First Mountain and left. However, when they left the room, they raised their heads and sized up Jiang Chen. They really couldn't understand why a disciple who was kicked out of the Ninth Mountain would be so valued by their master. He even mobilized the intelligence hall of the First Mountain to investigate the whereabouts of a certain immortal king in the north and east regions. This was something that had never happened since they entered the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. "Lord of the First Mountain, may I know why you called us here?" Xian Yu changed her posture and walked towards the Lord of the First Mountain elegantly. She sat on a chair and asked, "Of course it's about Jiang Chen." The Lord of the First Mountain glanced at Jiang Chen and said softly, "I say, why did you say everything? Isn't this getting more and more troublesome?" Jiang Chen walked towards her quickly and said softly. Originally, Jiang Chen didn't want to tell Xian Yu about this. Now that she had said everything, Jiang Chen was caught off guard. His previous plan was also disrupted. "With your current strength, are you able to solve these problems?" The Lord of the First Mountain didn't care about Jiang Chen at all. In a sense, she was Jiang Chen's elder. When her child made a mistake, as a parent, she naturally had to take care of it. All right, I'll listen to you guys." Jiang Chen spread out his hands and sat beside Xian Yu. "Lord of the Ninth Mountain, I've already sent out everyone from the intelligence hall to investigate the whereabouts of the sect leader of the Black Sect. However, you should know that our Kunlun Immortal Mountain doesn't know much about the outer regions. From what I know, this person had already attacked Jiangchen a few times when he was in the east regions. If we don't deal with him in time, we don't know when he will suddenly attack and kill him. The Lord of the First Mountain looked at Jiangchen and said to Xianyu, "Then according to your plan, what should the Ninth Mountain do?" Xianyu didn't know much about this matter. Chapter 1647. Send out the intelligence hall of the Ninth Mountain to gather information like us. The First Mountain Master said without hesitation. No problem. Xianyu agreed immediately. She was more anxious than the First Mountain Master when it came to Jiangchen's matters. Naturally, she would cooperate fully. And you, before this matter is settled, stay in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain obediently. Don't go anywhere. Understand? After Xianyu agreed, the First Mountain Master looked at Jiangchen and ordered in a low voice. All right. I'll wait here." Jiangchen shrugged and did not say anything else. Who would have thought that just as Jiangchen agreed, Jianyin walked in immediately. Under the First Mountain Master's signal, Jiangchen was asked to leave. "Let's go, Jiangchen. I'll send you back." Jianyin rolled his eyes and looked at Jiangchen, as if he was still angry about what happened before. "Thank you, little Jian." Jiangchen smiled faintly and stepped onto the immortal crane. Jianyin let out a long breath. If it were someone else, he would have already slapped him. But it was a pity that Jiangchen had a good relationship with the other mountain lords, and if he really attacked him, he would probably be driven out of the sect. After sending Jiangchen back to the Ninth Mountain, Jianyin did not stay and immediately returned to the First Mountain to deal with the intelligence hall. Sitting in the room, Jiangchen did not continue to think about the Black Sect leader. Instead, he chose to go into seclusion to cultivate. There were 7 to 8 immortal skills in the Immortal Emperor's tomb and the fusion technique waiting for him. The sooner he raised his cultivation, the sooner he could find his mother. Moreover, Jiangchen could clearly feel that there was some kind of relationship between the Black Sect leader and the Black Sky Emperor. Along the way, relying on the protection of others would not allow him to reach the end. Only when he was strong enough would he have the ability to face these problems. With 7 or 8 immortal arts placed in front of him, Jiangchen calmed his mind. With the control of his mind, the contents of the books turned into golden light and floated into Jiangchen's mind. Faced with such a huge amount of knowledge, Jiangchen was naturally a little overwhelmed. Even his brows were slightly furrowed. While Jiangchen was in seclusion, the Ninth Mountain and the First Mountain had already joined forces and mobilized nearly 200 disciples from their respective intelligence halls. They were scattered throughout the North region and the East region to investigate the whereabouts of the Black Sect leader. Little Ape and Huafu also took the opportunity to enter the Ninth Mountain and become disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. However, when they made this request, Xianyu was taken aback. A spiritual beast with the strength of an immortal lord would be placed in the Ninth Mountain. It was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. With such a cultivation level, it might even be able to become an elder in the 10th Mountain. Time passed day by day. Other than by Xiaoyan occasionally going to Jiangchen's cultivation area to check on the situation, Mystic Moon clearly stated that no one was allowed to disturb him. Even Qing Mu wasn't allowed to get close. In less than 7 days, many people suddenly gathered outside the gate of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Who dares to trespass on the Kunlun Celestial Mountains? The First Mountain Master's cold voice rang out from the mountain fog. First Mountain Master, we've learned that Jiangchen has returned to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain after returning from the East region. This time, we're here to seek an explanation. Standing at the front of these people was the leader of the Horizontal Blade Sect, Secretary Liu. Behind him were not only hundreds of disciples of the Horizontal Blade Sect, but also the leader of the Witheredwood Sect, Zhang Lai. When the tomb of the Immortal Emperor had appeared, they had sent Liu Jie and Zhang Lin, who were stronger in their respective sects, to see if they could take advantage of the situation. However, until now, not a single disciple from the two sects had returned. They had also learned from the other sects in the North region that their people had been ruthlessly tricked by Jiang Chun in the tomb of the immortal emperor. They didn't dare to cause trouble in the Yin-Yang sect. Although the strength of the Kunlun celestial mountain was stronger, Jiang Chun was, after all, a disciple who had been expelled. It was unlikely that the Kunlun celestial mountain would fall out with them because of a disciple who had been expelled. Oh, what explanation do you want? The tone of the first mountain master was as cold as usual. He didn't seem to be affected by their sudden visit. According to the information we've gathered, when Jiang Chun was in the tomb of the immortal emperor, he plotted to kill 2 elders of the horizontal blade sect and the withered wood sect. Even the disciples of our sects couldn't make it out alive. Shouldn't you give us an explanation for the hundreds of lives that were lost? Secretary Liu stared at the mountain gate. He was very unhappy with the way the conversation was going. Since ancient times, every time the tomb of the immortal emperor appeared, it would cause disputes and bloody disasters. The losses of your 2 sects can only be attributed to your inferior skills. Now, you dare to cause trouble in the Kunlun celestial mountain? Do you want to disappear completely from the North region? The first mountain master snorted and said indifferently, "This." Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai looked at each other. Scram! Another voice was heard from the mountain fog. Secretary Liu stared at the mountain gate of the Kunlun celestial mountain. The anger in his heart continued to accumulate. However, he knew clearly how big the gap was between his sect and the other party. If they turned back today, everything would be settled. However, in the future, they would no longer have any face in the North region. Outsiders would say that they didn't dare to look for Sun Sheng of the Yin-Yang sect. However, they couldn't even deal with a disciple who was abandoned by the Kunlun celestial mountain. In the future, the horizontal blade sect would no longer be able to lift their heads in the North region. Sect leader Liu, what do you think we should do? Zhang Lai clenched his fist and asked softly. It seems like the Kunlun celestial mountain doesn't intend to let him go. Let's just wait here. I don't believe that Jiang Chun will never come out. If we go back now, wouldn't the South region laugh at the withered wood sect? Secretary Liu stabbed the long spear in his hand into the ground and looked at the celestial mountain. You're right. We'll be a laughingstock if we go back now. However, I don't understand. Jiang Chun has already been chased out. Why is the Kunlun celestial mountain still tolerating him? Zhang Lai nodded his head. Secretary Liu's suggestion was the best solution now. Why do you care about this? Secretary Liu sat at the entrance of the celestial mountain. Hundreds of people blocked the entrance of the Kunlun celestial mountain. Many disciples who were entering and exiting the mountain didn't know what was going on. The last time it was so crowded was when Jiang Chun returned. He was chased by the people of the celestial mountain for treasures. Seeing these disciples of the Kunlun celestial mountain, Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai finally found an opportunity. They asked everyone in the sect to spread the news and tell them everything that Jiang Chun had done. They also asked them one by one why the Kunlun celestial mountain would protect a disciple who had been kicked out. However, after the disciples of the Kunlun celestial mountain heard this, they didn't have much of a reaction. In their hearts, Jiang Chun had been a swindler for a long time. The losses suffered by these 2 sects were not even as great as the losses suffered by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain when Jiang Chun had left. Chapter 1648. The first mountain master did not take this matter to heart. Even if the horizontal blade sect and the withered wood sect were on the same side, they were just clowns to the Kunlun celestial mountain. As Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai continued to block the entrance, the intelligence hall of the first mountain and the 9th mountain received a very important piece of news. At this moment, in the main hall of the first mountain, Xianyu, Qingmu, and a few elders of the 9th mountain were all sitting there. Jianyun, tell them the situation. The first mountain master sipped a cup of tea and said calmly. All right. Jianyun stood up and bowed to the first mountain master. Then he cupped his fists at Xianyu and said, Everyone, after more than 10 days of investigation, we have received an important piece of information about the Black Sect. This sect in the outer region seems to have a branch sect in the North region. What? As soon as this was said, Other than the first mountain master and Xianyu, everyone else was shocked. One should know that the Kunlun Celestial Mountain had been in the North region for a very long time. They knew all the sects in the North region like the back of their hand. However, now that they suddenly knew that a sect was a branch sect of the Black Sect from the outer region, they started to doubt the information that they had received for a long time. This sect is the Black Cloud sect at the border of the North region. The first mountain master added. Black Cloud sect? Qing Mu was a little surprised. First mountain master. Qing Mu stood up and cupped his fists at the two of them. Then he continued, 5 years ago, during the North region meeting, I was the representative of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain and brought my disciples to participate. I once fought with an elder of the Black Cloud sect. Their immortal skills and moves were not a problem. If they wanted to hide it, would you be able to discover it? Xianyu rolled her eyes at him. Since ancient times, we have not had any contact with the outer region. Even the Black Sect is the first time we have heard of them. If this Black Cloud sect is really a branch sect of the Black Sect, then we must eliminate them from the North region. The first mountain master's voice was cold and unquestionable. Don't be so anxious. Just as Xianyu was about to agree, a graceful figure walked in. This person had a head full of thick brown hair and a voluptuous figure. Although she was a little plump, her plump figure was just right. Her pair of long legs without any excess fat attracted everyone's attention the moment she appeared. Even Yun couldn't help but raise his head to take a look. Behind her, there were a few older people. Wei, what are you doing here? Seeing the woman walk into the main hall, the first mountain chieftain frowned slightly. She did not want too many people to know about Jiangchun. Although the sixth mountain chieftain would definitely support him, the Kunlun Celestial Mountain did not only have the 3 mountain chieftains. I already know about Jiangchun's situation. Why don't you tell me? Wei Yu directly sat beside Xianyu. There was some anger in her words. If it wasn't for the news of the Horizontal Blade sect and the Withered Wood sect blocking the entrance, she wouldn't have known about it. You've been in seclusion, so I didn't want to disturb you. Xianyu sat to the side. Now that I've come out of seclusion, I can't ignore Jiangchen's situation. Tell me, what have you found out? If you don't have any leads, I can bring the elders and disciples of the 6th mountain to the outer region and make the Black Sect disappear from the immortal world. Wei Yu gently smoothed her hair. Don't make trouble, the first mountain chieftain said in a deep voice. If you don't tell me the truth today, I won't leave. Wei Yu crossed her legs. The elders behind her also crossed their arms. Seeing her like this, the first mountain chieftain could only wave her hand and let Jian Yun repeat what he had just said. As Jian Yun spoke, Wei Yu's eyes gradually darkened. She realized that this matter was far more serious than she had thought. This time, Jiangchun might have really gotten into trouble. Is the Black Cloud sect confirmed to be a subsect of the Black Sect? Wei Yu looked at the first mountain chieftain and asked. Based on the situation we have now, it should be. The first mountain chieftain nodded. Well said, I'll go and ask now. If they are really a sect from the outer region, I'll help the North region clean up these evil creatures. Wei Yu would not allow Jiangchun to be in danger. After saying this, she directly stood up and walked out of the main hall. What are you going to do? The first mountain chieftain quickly stopped her. Of course I'm going to solve the problem. Now that Jiangchun has been targeted by them, I've already solved them while you're here discussing. Wei Yu gently waved her hand. After she finished speaking, her figure had already disappeared from the main hall. Stop her! The first mountain chieftain was somewhat helpless. One of the reasons why she did not tell Wei Yu was that she was too easily agitated. Sometimes she might ruin things. Qing Mu quickly ran out and blocked in front of the 6th mountain chieftain. Go back and tell Xianyu that if she's willing to help, she'll immediately go to the Black Cloud sect with me. If she's not willing, after I've solved this matter, Jiangchun must bring us to the 6th mountain. I'm not at ease with him in your hands. Wei Yu looked at Qing Mu, who was blocking her, and said in a deep voice. 6th mountain chieftain, the Black Sect leader, might already be in the North region. Moreover, this person's strength is very strong. I'm afraid that he's not inferior to the 3 immortal kings. If we act rashly, I'm afraid that not only will we not be able to solve the problem, we might even complicate the situation. Don't forget that Zhou Kunlun is not here, and the 10th mountain chieftain is not in the mountain either. Xin Yu also chased out, grabbed Wei Yu's arm, and whispered, "Then we'll let them continue to attack Jiangchen?" Wei Yu is not a fool. She naturally understood these principles, but she was more concerned about Jiangchen's safety. Jiangchen is in seclusion. When he comes out, we'll tell him this news and see what he wants to do. Xin Yu sighed softly. He's the young master. We can't do these things behind his back. Xin Yu's gaze was firm as she stared at Wei Yu. All right. Then I'll wait for Jiangchen to come out of seclusion. But don't forget that his current cultivation is only at the 3rd level of the true immortal realm. He doesn't have the strength to fight back against an immortal king or even an immortal monarch. Hearing Xin Yu's words, Wei Yu could only nod and agree. He's a celestial immortal. After he returned from the East region, he was already at the 2nd level of the celestial immortal realm. I reckon that after this seclusion, he'll be able to improve even more. At this point, a smile appeared on Xin Yu's face. It was a kind of pride. She believed that it wouldn't take long for Jiangchen to regain his footing in the immortal realm. You can't be. Seeing her expression, Wei Yu seemed to understand something. Chapter 1649. No, I'm keeping my distance from him. Xin Yu's pretty face turned red. That's good. He's now a disciple of the 9th mountain. If news about you spread, it'll be bad for the entire Kunlun celestial mountain. Wei Yu turned around and glanced into the main hall. When she saw the 1st mountain lord staring at her, she said faintly, "You can discuss this matter with her. When the time comes, let me know the result." After saying this, Wei Yu quickly left with a few elders. Xin Yu watched Wei Yu disappear into the peak of the 1st mountain before returning to the main hall. This 6th mountain lord. The 1st mountain lord shook his head helplessly. After a discussion, they decided not to make a move for the time being. They would continue to inquire about the Black Cloud sect. As for how to deal with it, they would have to wait until Jiangchen came out of seclusion. In the secret chamber, Jiangchen had been in seclusion for a whole month. During this period, he had been absorbing the mysteries of the celestial techniques, trying to merge the different celestial powers in his body together. However, no matter what method he used, he could only merge 2 of them. My strength is still too weak. Jiangchen slowly opened his eyes. After gradually adapting to the darkness in front of him, he helplessly put away all the celestial techniques. In this month, his strength had only increased from the 2nd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm to the 3rd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm. These celestial techniques of different attributes had only been integrated into the first 2 moves. This was also thanks to the herbs that he had swallowed in the Immortal Emperor's tomb. Otherwise, without the opportunity, no matter how long he had been in seclusion, it would have been impossible for his cultivation to increase. After sitting on the bed for a while, Jiangchen pushed open the door to the secret chamber. 3rd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm. Not bad. Hearing the movement behind her, Bai Xiaoyan turned around. After sensing that Jiangchen was emitting a stronger aura than before, she could not help but praise him. My cultivation has increased too slowly. Jiangchen shook his head and said helplessly, with this kind of strength, not to mention personally going to the unknown region to look for his mother, he probably didn't even have the qualifications to enter. Bai Xiaoyan patted Jiangchen's shoulder and comforted him. It's already very good. You were originally someone who ascended. In such a short period of time, you were able to advance from an immortal to a celestial immortal. Looking around, there aren't many people in the entire immortal world who can achieve such a speed like you. Perhaps in a few hundred years or a few thousand years, you can also become an immortal king like me. Yeah, Jiangchen shrugged. Oh, that's right. While you were in seclusion, the Horizontal Blade sect and the Withered Wood sect joined forces and went to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain to cause trouble for you. However, they were stopped by the 1st mountain lord outside the mountain gate. If I'm not mistaken, this group of people is probably still waiting for you at the mountain gate. Bai Xiaoyan suddenly thought of this matter and quickly told Jiangchen, "Let's go take a look." The corners of Jiangchen's mouth curled up into a smile as he quickly rushed towards the foot of the mountain. "Wait for me." Bai Xiaoyan only felt a blur in front of her and Jiang Chun had already disappeared in front of her. She quickly activated the immortal force in her body and quickly followed behind. At the entrance of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, the Horizontal Blade sect and the Witheredwood sect were still waiting there. They knew that if they left, they would definitely become the laughingstock of the northern and southern regions. Instead of going back and being ridiculed and looked down upon, they would rather wait here. They believed that Jiang Chun would return sooner or later. Only 1 month had passed. Both Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai were a little impatient. If not for the fact that they didn't dare to offend the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, they would have rushed in directly and cut Jiang Chun into pieces. Two sect leaders, I heard that you have been waiting for me here for a long time. May I know what's the matter? Jiang Chun flew down from the clouds. Jiang Chun. Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai immediately became alert. The two of them stood up and looked around. Finally, they saw Jiang Chun in the mountain gate. The strength of these two people is above immortal venerable. They can't attack you. Do you need me to deal with them? Bai Xiaoyan sensed the strength of the other party almost instantly. She lowered her head and asked Jiang Chun. No need. Jiang Chun smiled faintly and walked down the stone steps. Jiang Chun brat, according to the agreement, we can't hurt you. So please come back with us and hand over all the treasures you took from the tomb of the immortal emperor. Zhang Lai took a step forward and pointed at Jiang Chun and said loudly, Are you here to rob me or to avenge the deaths of your sect members? Jiang Chun laughed when he heard this. It doesn't matter why we are here. You have killed the elders and hundreds of disciples of our Witheredwood sect. Even if there is the agreement of 2 realms and the agreement of 1,000 years, I can still deal with you. Secretary Liu waved his hand, and 2 immortal monarchs stood out from behind him. It seems like you don't know me very well. Looking at these people, Jiang Chun laughed. Soon after, he raised his hand and snapped his fingers. His voice drifted out. Shortly after, a few powerful auras came out from the peak of the 9th mountain. In the blink of an eye, 7 to 8 people appeared on both sides of Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaoyan. And these people were actually all immortal kings. How is this possible? This scene stunned Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai. They only knew that Jiang Chun was accompanied by an immortal king when they were in the tomb of the immortal emperor. However, they didn't expect that Jiang Chun had more than 1 immortal king with him. Alliance leader, these people have been blocking the entrance of the mountain since a month ago. If it wasn't for the fact that the first mountain lord didn't allow us to deal with them, we would have crippled them long ago. An immortal king who was close to Jiang Chun pointed at Secretary Liu and said with a cold smile, Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Chun didn't say much. As soon as he finished speaking, a few immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain immediately rushed out and killed their way into the Horizontal Blade sect and Witheredwood sect. Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai had brought all the experts from their families. There were immortal monarchs, immortal primes, and even 3 sub-immortal kings. However, their strength was nothing in front of the real immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain. In an instant, screams of agony could be heard. Those immortal monarchs and immortal primes were killed the moment they started fighting. The 3 sub-immortal kings could only block them for a short while. They couldn't withstand the combined attacks of the 7 to 8 immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain and fell to the ground with serious injuries. In less than 10 minutes, the group of people who were still clamoring were either dead or injured. Even Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai suffered serious injuries. They could barely stand up with the help of their disciples. Now, do you still want to ask me for treasures? Jiang Chun put his hands on his hips and looked at them coldly. No. Secretary Liu waved his hands and didn't dare to raise his head to look at Jiang Chun anymore. Chapter 1650. All the information they had learned about Jiang Chun was that he was protected by an immortal king. That was why they had dared to come to Jiang Chun's house to collect the debt after gathering 3 quasi-immortal kings. However, to their surprise, Jiang Chun not only had Bai Xiaoyan by his side, but also 7 or 8 genuine immortal kings. Since you don't want it, then get lost. If I see you looking for trouble in the future, Don't blame me for making the withered wood sect and the horizontal blade sect disappear from the northern region. Jiang Chun waved his hand impatiently. Understood. Understood. Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai didn't dare to hesitate any longer. They hurriedly brought the disciples who could still move and left. As for those who were killed, they directly threw them here. They were afraid that if they left any slower, Jiang Chun would go back on his words, and they might even die here. Should we chase after them and kill them? A few immortal kings from the overseas immortal mountains stood in front of Jiang Chun. No need, let them go. Jiang Chun glanced at them and suddenly said, You guys should return to the overseas immortal mountains first. I don't need your protection here. Ah, Alliance leader, why? They didn't expect Jiang Chun to suddenly say this. There's no reason. If I tell you to go back, then go back. Jiang Chun frowned slightly and didn't tell them the truth. That was that the sect leader of the Black Sect was trying his best to make a move on him. It was hard to guarantee that this person wouldn't treat the overseas immortal mountains as his target. And with these immortal kings by his side, the overseas immortal mountains naturally had less protection. The immortal kings looked at each other, unable to guess the reason why Jiang Chun did this. But since Jiang Chun had already said it, they couldn't object. They could only nod and agree. Then Alliance leader, when shall we go back? The immortal king asked. Let's do it now. After you go back, stay in the overseas immortal mountain obediently. No one is allowed to go out without my permission. Otherwise, if I learn about it, I will definitely hold him accountable for his wrongdoings, Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. Alliance leader, take care of yourself. Hearing Jiang Chun's words, they didn't dare to stay any longer. After cupping their hands to Jiang Chun and Bai Xiaoyan, they instantly left Kunlun Mountain. Looking at the light in the air, Bai Xiaoyan couldn't help but sigh. Bai Xiaoyan shook her head and said in a low voice, With them gone, you'll have one less protection. I don't have a choice. If they stay with me, I can't guarantee what the outcome will be once the Black sect leader makes a move on the overseas immortal mountain. Jiang Chun frowned slightly. He didn't hide anything from Bai Xiaoyan. I suddenly recalled that the first mountain lord and the ninth mountain lord seemed to have discussed how to deal with him. Even the sixth mountain lord seemed to have appeared. Looking at the disciples of the Kunlun immortal mountain, Bai Xiaoyan approached Jiang Chun and whispered, Wei Yu. Jiang Chun was a little surprised. Ever since he ascended to the immortal realm, he had never seen Wei Yu. After such a long time, he wondered if her figure was still as plump and bouncy as before. Don't tell me that all the mountain lords of the Kunlun immortal mountain are female? Bai Xiaoyan was a little surprised. You can ask them yourself. Jiang Chun didn't answer. He turned and walked into the immortal mountain. At the foot of the ninth mountain, Jiang Chun was just about to go up the mountain to ask Xian Yu if she had found out anything when a cold wind swept over. Bai Xiaoyan immediately became vigilant and shielded Jiang Chun behind her. However, Jiang Chun felt a sense of familiarity. After the cold wind dissipated, Wei Yu stood in front of Jiang Chun. She put her hands on her hips and said in a displeased tone, What? After not seeing me for so long, you actually want to attack me? Seeing Wei Yu, Jiang Chun hurriedly whispered to Bai Xiaoyan, Eldest senior brother, let's stop. She's the sixth mountain lord. Bai Xiaoyan let down her guard. After returning to the immortal realm, you actually didn't take the initiative to visit me. You're getting bolder and bolder. Wei Yu's clear and beautiful eyes stared at Jiang Chun. Although there was a hint of indignation in her words, there was also a hint of coquettishness. Ahem, I was too busy and didn't have time to visit you. Jiang Chun touched his nose and replied awkwardly, But why are you here? I can go anywhere in the Kunlun immortal mountain. Wei Yu put her hands behind her back. Just this movement made her chest even more perky, and even her clothes couldn't support it. F***CK. Bai Xiaoyan swallowed her saliva and quickly turned her head away, afraid that she would embarrass herself in front of Jiang Chun. Come with me. Wei Yu rolled her eyes at Bai Xiaoyan and turned to look at Jiang Chun. Other than Jiang Chun, she was not interested in any other man in the immortal realm. Of course, those men were not worth her bullying. You go back to the ninth mountain first. Jiang Chen turned his head and whispered to Bai Xiaoyan. Then, before Bai Xiaoyan could answer, Jiang Chen was lifted into the air by a force and flew towards the sixth peak at high speed. TSK, what's the difference between this and kidnapping? Looking at Jiang Chen's figure in midair, Bai Xiaoyan couldn't help but smack her lips and sigh. However, if he could be kidnapped by such a voluptuous woman, he would be convinced. Seeing the two figures disappear into the mountain, Bai Xiaoyan sighed and lamented why she didn't have such good fortune. On the sixth mountain, Jiang Chen was thrown onto the bed in the room by Wei Yu. With a wave of her delicate hand, the door of the room was slammed shut. Jiang Chen was like a little chick, curled up on the bed and shivering. Tell me, why didn't you tell me when you returned to the immortal realm? If I hadn't heard the news from those people who blocked the mountain gate, I'm afraid I would still be in the dark. Wei Yu stretched out her hand, and a long whip appeared in her hand. With a slight movement of her arm, the whip cracked. That? Didn't you appear before? Jiang Chen asked weakly. Who knew it was you? Wei Yu raised her eyebrows. When Jiang Chen almost emptied the Kunlun mountain, she only went out to show her face. She didn't even see Jiang Chen's appearance. Moreover, she didn't expect that this Jiang Chen was the Jiang Chen she had been thinking about day and night. But in fact, Wei Yu's guess was not wrong. After all, Jiang Chen had disappeared from the immortal realm for several generations. I'm back this time. Jiang Chen wiped the cold sweat on his head and said in a flattering manner, But you, instead of greeting me, you treat me like this. Aren't you a little unreasonable? You almost emptied the ninth mountain. If you were allowed to stay in the Kunlun mountain for a while longer, I'm afraid that the sixth mountain would be emptied too, right? Wei Yu snorted coldly. I can return the sixth mountain to you. Looking at the whip in Wei Yu's hand, Jiang Chen instantly understood a principle. A wise man submits to circumstances. Chapter 1651. At least you know what's good for you. Wei Yu snorted coldly. If anyone else dared to do this, she would make that person disappear from the immortal realm. However, it was Jiang Chen who took the celestial jade. Heroine, I'll return the celestial jade to you. Can you spare my life? Jiang Chen stared at the whip in Wei Yu's hand. When he thought about how this thing was about to hit his body and tear his flesh apart, Jiang Chen felt cold sweat trickling down his back. Sure, but since you've been expelled from the ninth mountain, why don't you come to the sixth mountain? I'll give you the best cultivation resources and guarantee that you'll be promoted from a celestial immortal to a celestial supremacy in a very short time. Wei Yu said softly as she put away the whip. No, I'm doing pretty well in the ninth mountain. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chen quickly shook his head and refused. What a joke! He ate and drank well in the ninth mountain and lived a carefree life. If he really went to the sixth mountain and had to face Wei Yu every day, he would probably be beaten to death by her whip in less than a week. All right, since you said so, I won't force you to stay. However, I have to remind you that among the 9 mountain lords of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, only I and the first mountain lord support you. The other mountain lords don't have a good impression of you. Moreover, you've benefited a lot from them before. So you should know what I mean, right? Wei Yu also knew that Jiang Chen would not come to her. After all, a few centuries ago, she was the only one who could suppress him in the entire Kunlun Celestial Mountain. It doesn't matter. I won't ask for their help. Jiang Chen shrugged, looking fearless. Among all his opponents, the Immortal King level was still a threat except for the sect leader of the Black Sect. Chou Wanli and Zhou Yuansheng both died in the Immortal Emperor tomb. Other than that, there were some celestial supremacies and celestial dukes. With Bai Xiaoyan and the others around, it was impossible for them to hurt him. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the door. Jinyan knocked on the door and said in a deep voice, "The 6th Mountain Lord and 1st Mountain Lord have summoned all the Mountain Lords to the main hall for a meeting." Jiang Chen smiled when he heard the voice. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Lil Jian, you're not an outsider. Come on in." Small Sword Jiang Chen, an expelled disciple from the 9th Mountain, actually dared to refer to an elder from the 1st Mountain as Little Sword. For a moment, many disciples of the 6th Mountain began to whisper among themselves. When they saw Jin Yun, they had to respectfully address him as Elder Jin. This son of a bitch. Jin Yun's eyes darkened as he cursed in his heart. This son of a bitch Jiang Chun. Not only did he call me that, he even dared to call me that in front of so many disciples. However, these thoughts were just thoughts. Since the Ninth Mountain Lord had been protecting Jiang Chun, Jin Yun calmed himself down, pushed open the door, and walked in. However, when he saw Jiang Chun sitting on the main bed of the sixth mountain, he was shocked. Ahem, Elder Jin, may I know why the first mountain lord has summoned us? Wei Yu's face turned red as she coughed twice and asked softly. The sixth mountain lord is here because of Jiang Chun. Now that the other mountain lords of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain know about this, they are worried that it might bring trouble to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, so they're here to ask about it. Jin Yun did not hesitate as he retracted his gaze from Jiang Chun and cupped his hands towards Wei Yu. What a joke! Even the three great immortal kings are afraid of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. How can a mere black sect leader make them feel like they are facing a great enemy? Wei Yu laughed coldly. The sixth mountain lord is not here because of this matter. It's because Jiang Chun is too good at causing trouble. Jin Yun spoke the truth. However, after knowing that Jiang Chun might have a good relationship with the sixth mountain lord, his tone softened. Wei Yu turned to look at Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun hurriedly climbed down from the bed and tidied up his messy clothes. Elder Jin, please inform the other mountain lords. Jiang Chun and I will be there soon. Wei Yu cupped her hands towards Jin Yun. Yes, sixth mountain lord. Jin Yun lowered his head and left. He was no longer angry at Jiang Chun for calling him Little Jin. Instead, he was filled with endless fantasies about the relationship between Jiang Chun and the sixth mountain lord. After Jin Yun left, Wei Yu snorted coldly. Tell me, how many things are you hiding from me? How much trouble have you caused after returning to the immortal realm? Wei Yu looked at Jiang Chun, and her voice was much colder. She originally thought that Jiang Chun would keep a low profile after returning this time, but she did not expect that he could force the 9 mountain lords to gather again in such a short time with only the strength of a celestial immortal. Not much. Jiang Chun touched his nose. Even if you don't tell me, I'll know later. You'd better pray that you didn't cause too much trouble. Otherwise, I'll seal you in the 6th mountain. Wei Yu swung her sleeves and strode outside. Jiang Chun scratched his head and could only follow. Sitting on the blue lawn outside, the two turned into a ball of flowing light and sped away from the 6th mountain. A moment later, the blue lawn stopped at the peak of the 1st mountain. At this time, many disciples from the other mountains had gathered at the peak. When they saw that Jiang Chun and the 6th mountain lord had arrived at the same time, they first cupped their hands towards Wei Yu and then coldly looked at Jiang Chun. Their eyes were filled with contempt, disdain, and of course, envy. To be so close to the mountain lords was something they had dreamed of their entire lives. If looks could kill, I'm afraid you'd be lying in a pool of blood now. Wei Yu glanced around. When she saw that these people were looking at Jiang Chun, she covered her mouth and couldn't help but whisper to Jiang Chun. Unfortunately, I can't. Jiang Chun shrugged. When they entered the main hall, other than Xin Yu, the other mountain lords were all sitting inside. When they saw Jiang Chun enter, everyone's eyes instantly focused on him. Jiang Chun, you still have the face to come back. When will we return the immortal jades and Wuji stones from the 3rd mountain? You dog, if it weren't for the 1st mountain lord and the 9th mountain lord, would you still be alive and standing here? As soon as Jiang Chun entered, a few mountain lords stood up and pointed at his nose and scolded him loudly. The immortal jades and Wuji stones that were taken away from the overseas immortal mountain some time ago were almost all of the treasures in their mountain sections. When Jiang Chun left with them, they wanted to send their disciples to get them back. However, because of the 1st mountain lord and the 9th mountain lord, they chose to let Jiang Chun go. However, now that Jiang Chun had returned to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain and even caused trouble, he needed their help. This made the mountain lords very unhappy. One had to know that ever since Jiang Chun left, they had been living frugally. Chapter 1652. Don't quarrel. We're here today to discuss countermeasures, not to listen to you quarrel. The first mountain frowned. She knew that this would happen, but she didn't expect these mountain lords to say such nasty words the moment they saw Jiangchun. That's right. The ninth mountain can repay what Jiangchun owes you. If you don't want to discuss it, you can leave now. No one will stop you. A clear voice sounded from outside. Xian Yu walked in slowly with Qing Mu, her gaze constantly sweeping across the mountain lords. The sixth mountain can also repay him. Wei Yu naturally didn't want to be at a disadvantage. Hearing this, the mountain lords immediately lost their temper. Xian Yu, Wei Yu, and the first mountain lord were protecting Jiangchun. If they continued, they would hurt the harmony of Kunlun Celestial Mountain. This was something no one wanted to see. However, although they could get compensation, Jiangchun's actions really made them gnash their teeth in hatred. They were not convinced that they would help just like that. Everyone, according to the information I've gathered, not only did Jiangchun offend a sect from another region, but he even offended Immortal King Xian Jun. The two sword-bearing children under Immortal King Xian Jun died directly or indirectly in his hands. Although Kunlun Celestial Mountain isn't afraid of Xian Jun, we don't have to go against Xian Jun because of Jiangchun. The mountain lords of the third and seventh mountain stood out and said one after another. The first mountain lord's expression didn't change. She already knew about this in front of the immortal emperor's tomb, but Xian Yu and Wei Yu didn't. The two of them turned their heads and looked at Jiangchun with fierce eyes, as if they wanted to drag Jiangchun down and beat him up. Xian Jun is an immortal king, but due to the promise of the two realms and the promise of 1,000 years, he can't directly attack Jiangchun. Naturally, there's no need to worry about this. If you're still obsessed with Jiangchun's mistakes, please leave my hall now. The first mountain lord raised her head and said calmly. However, her tone was serious and heavy, and she didn't give them any chance to refute. With that said, the mountain lords of the third and seventh mountain sat down. Right now, we have already investigated. The Black Cloud sect is a subordinate sect of the Black sect in the outer region. If we continue to allow this sect to survive in the northern region, there will definitely be trouble in the future. Thus, before they become useless, I suggest that we directly take action and make them completely disappear from the northern region. Seeing that no one spoke, the first mountain master continued speaking. I agree. I agree too. Xian Yu and Wei Yu said one after another. The other mountain chieftains weren't fools. They knew that the first mountain chieftain was just making an official statement. His true intention was to help Jiangchun solve his problem. If they didn't help, it was very likely that it would cause internal strife among the Kunlun Celestial Mountains. But if they helped, even if Xian Yu and Wei Yu agreed to compensate them, they still couldn't swallow their anger. As he hesitated, the eighth mountain lord stood up. He was a very sturdy, middle-aged man. His arms were wrapped in thick linen, and his muscles were as strong as a celestial ox. One look, and one could tell that he was a master of physical skills. The first mountain chieftain is right, but if you want us to accept Jiangchun so easily, it's a little too easy. How about this? If he can withstand 10 moves from the eldest disciple of the eighth mountain, we will accept him unconditionally. But if he can't, the three mountain sects can do it if you want. Don't drag us down with you. The eighth mountain lord looked at Jiangchun and said in a provocative manner, Yangju, aren't you going a little too far? As soon as he finished speaking, Xian Yu's expression changed slightly. One should know that the eldest disciple of the eighth mountain, Zhou Tai, was a third-level immortal venerable. He was one of the top disciples in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain and even had the qualifications to become an elder of the eighth mountain. Jiangchun was only a third-level celestial immortal. Even if it didn't violate the agreement between the two sects, it was still extremely unfair. I agree. This way, we will know if Jiangchun is worthy of the protection of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. That's right. Three mountain chieftains, we have already made a concession. Please do the same. Behind him, the third and seventh mountain chieftains stood up again. Just as Xian Yu was about to speak up for Jiangchun, since all the mountain chieftains want to see what I, Jiang Chun, am capable of. I accept the challenge. However, I have a request. If I can withstand 10 moves, you don't have to return the immortal jades and Wuji stones. What do you think? Jiang Chun stood in the middle of the hall and said with a faint smile, Are you crazy? That Zhou Tai is in the 3rd tier of the immortal venerable realm, and he has practiced the extreme power fist method of the 8th mountain to perfection. He is strong enough to fight against someone in the 5th or 6th tier of the immortal venerable realm. With your strength, I'm afraid you won't even last 1 round, let alone 10 rounds. Wei Yu said to Jiang Chun in a low voice. If I run away, I'm afraid it won't be enough to convince everyone, Jiang Chun said softly with a smile. All right, then it's settled. Zhou Tai, come and fight with Jiang Chun of the 9th mountain. Yang Ju laughed loudly and stood up to wave his hand. Instantly, a young man with a similarly strong build walked in. As soon as he entered, his gaze fell on Jiang Chun, and he sneered with disdain. The first mountain chieftain had no choice but to clench his hand. The chairs of the other mountain chieftains quickly moved back. Even Qing Mu, Jin Yun, and the others were pulled back by the force, making way for the center of the hall. Kid, seeing that we're both disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, I'll spare your life within 10 moves. Zhou Tai faced Jiang Chun head-on. As he moved his legs, the sound of bones twisting could be heard. Waves of terrifying pressure instantly swept through the entire hall. Xin Yu and Wei Yu broke out in cold sweat for Jiang Chun. The first mountain chieftain looked calm on the surface, but he had secretly mobilized his immortal power, ready to rescue Jiang Chun at any time. If something happened to Jiang Chun here, she would not be able to explain it to Wan Cheng. First mountain chieftain, Jiang Chun has already agreed. Do you still want to break the rules? Feeling the faint fluctuation of immortal power from the first mountain chieftain, the second mountain chieftain sneered and said, This has nothing to do with you. The first mountain chieftain snorted. Under Zhou Tai's terrifying pressure, Jiang Chun gradually looked at him seriously. He could clearly feel that this person's strength was much stronger than Ku Shan of Mount Tianlang. Kid, you're only a level 3 heaven immortal. It's not too late to beg for mercy. Zhou Tai clenched his fist. Among the immortal venerables he had fought before, no one could withstand his extreme fist technique. With a full blow, Jiang Chun would disappear without a trace in an instant. Chapter 1653. I'm sorry. I've never said the word beg for mercy. Jiang Chun looked straight at him. His body was gradually surrounded by light and dark immortal qi. Just like Emperor Qianji in the enchantment, it formed a circle of light. The two immortal qi of different attributes fused together. This was what Jiang Chun had comprehended from the fusion method when he was in seclusion. Unfortunately, he could only fuse 2 attributes now. Light attribute immortal qi, dark attribute immortal qi. Sensing the fluctuation of Jiang Chun's immortal qi and seeing the 2 colors, one white and one black, everyone present was a little shocked. Logically speaking, the light and dark attributes should not exist in a person's body. But now Jiang Chun had done it. This made them very shocked. Even Xin Yu and Wei Yu were very surprised. However, although they were surprised, they did not say anything. Those who had ascended from the lower realm were definitely not ordinary people. This only proved that Jiang Chun was a little different from other cultivators. It did not prove anything else. You have some skills, but unfortunately, all tricks are useless in the face of strength. Zhou Tai was obviously a little shocked, but he quickly calmed down. As his immortal qi gradually gathered on his fist, the illusion of a tiger was revealed and gradually became clear. Tiger roaring divine fist. The moment the tiger head condensed, Zhou Tai did not hesitate and directly bombarded Jiang Chun. This was the 5th move of the extreme strength fist technique, and also Zhou Tai's proudest move. In the past, when he trained with Yang Ju, he had beaten Yang Ju 2 steps back with this move. Although it was a sneak attack and Yang Ju did not fight back, it was enough to prove the power. After he shouted, the whole hall was suddenly filled with a gust of wind. His whole body swept toward Jiang Chun at an extremely fast speed. The sound of the sonic boom was constantly whistling in the ear. Even the space where the tiger head passed seemed to be torn apart. Everyone was shocked. They thought that Jiang Chun would definitely not be able to take it, and would even be seriously injured. Mystic Moon and the other two could no longer hold themselves back, and wanted to make a move. However, when the fist was about to reach Jiang Chen's hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, moved slightly. Several Madra appeared. A giant tree lifted the plank up and started to grow rapidly. It didn't stop until it reached the roof of the hall. Boom! Zhou Tai's fist hit the tree trunk without any fancy moves. Suddenly, the tree trunk cracked inch by inch. It held on for less than a breath of time before it completely exploded, directly smashing towards Jiang Chen's face. There's even wood elemental, immortal energy. Zhou Tai's face was somewhat distorted. At this moment, he no longer intended to hold back. Given enough time to grow, he was afraid that his title as the #1 immortal venerable in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain would soon be gone. Jiang Chun didn't even blink. Just as the tiger head was about to swallow him, a new seal was formed. Dark Heaven Rippling Barrier, Jiang Chun said in a low voice. Immediately after, a black fog erupted from his body and instantly swallowed the two of them. The 9 mountain lords stared intently. They tried to sense the situation inside, but they could only sense the specific location of Jiang Chun and Zhou Tai. They couldn't sense anything else. Just as they were concentrating, 3 streams of light swept out from the 9th mountain and rushed towards the 1st mountain at an extremely fast speed. They arrived almost in the blink of an eye. Bam! The door of the hall was kicked open. 3 figures quickly walked in under the sunlight. Where's Jiang Chun? Bai Xiaoyan held a kari in one hand and a white long sword in the other. She narrowed her eyes and scanned the people inside. Beside him, Little Ape and Hua Fu stood. 1 immortal king and 2 immortal monarchs' cultivation immediately erupted in the hall. After the 3 of them sensed Jiang Chen's immortal power fluctuation, they realized that there might be danger and immediately rushed here. Bai Xiaoyan was even prepared to fight them to the death. He's inside. Don't worry. With us in the hall, there won't be any problems. Xin Yu's figure flashed and arrived in front of Bai Xiaoyan. Lord of the 9th mountain, Jiang Chun is now the Lord of the Intelligence Pavilion. He is also the leader of the Overseas Immortal Mountain Alliance. If anything happens to him in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, I don't think we'll rest until one of us dies. Bai Xiaoyan took a deep breath and stared at the black fog with bloodshot eyes. Kunlun might not be afraid of the 3 immortal kings, but if the White Robe Immortal King was here, together with the experts of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion and the Overseas Immortal Mountain Alliance, it was enough to make Kunlun suffer. Moreover, the moment he sensed Jiang Chen's energy fluctuation, he set up a barrier in Bai Fengyu's room, afraid that Bai Fengyu would do something impulsive. Don't worry. Xin Yu glanced at Bai Xiaoyan. She was not much less worried than the former. Within the black fog, Zhou Tai was already locked in the barrier by Jiang Chun. His fist missed, and he took a few steps forward. When he turned back and was about to condense his immortal energy to use the 6th move of the extreme strength fist technique, his body suddenly tensed up. What kind of barrier is this? Zhou Tai lowered his head and realized that he was already locked to the wooden stake. No matter how he struggled, the ropes would not budge. Even his immortal energy was suppressed. I sensed it when I advanced to the heavenly immortal stage, Jiang Chun casually said. This sentence almost made Zhou Tai spit out a mouthful of blood. When he advanced to the heavenly immortal stage, he did not even sense a fart. Thus, he angrily said, "Brat, your barrier won't be able to trap me for long. When I break free, it will be the time of your death." Oh, is that so? Standing in the black fog, Jiang Chun raised his head and smiled coldly. As he spoke, Jiang Chun gradually condensed a radiant longsword in his hand. When this longsword appeared, the black fog around him was dispersed. The blade of the driving light. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes. This celestial art was the light attribute celestial art left by the immortal emperor in the treasure pavilion. Jiang Chun had roughly comprehended it when he was in seclusion. Although he had not reached the level of great success, he could barely use it with his current cultivation. And this time, it was the first time that Jiang Chun used the fusion technique. He fused the power of darkness and light attributes to fight. Fancy moves. With your cultivation, you can only trap me for a while. Seeing Jiang Chun walking towards him, Zhou Tai could not help but mock him. At the same time, he was still trying to break free. Unfortunately, although he was enjoying himself, the ropes did not loosen at all. Poof! Walking in front of him, Jiang Chun directly pierced his long sword into his shoulder. Hiss! This pain made Zhou Tai immediately shiver. However, after the long sword was pierced, another one appeared in Jiang Chun's hand. This time, Jiang Chun held it and pierced it into his other shoulder. Chapter 1654. Time passed. Long swords continued to appear in Jiang Chun's hands. His chest, his abdomen, his waist, his legs, even his feet were pierced through by the long swords. Zhou Tai could no longer feel pain. The only thing he could feel was his life draining away. In the end, there was only panic in his eyes. He knew that he had fallen into Jiang Chun's hands. Just as he gave up and was about to stop struggling, the black fog dissipated. The light swords in his body also dissipated. Plop! Zhou Tai fell heavily on the wooden plank. His eyes were wide open and filled with fear. Even his body was trembling uncontrollably. On the other side, Jiang Chun's immortal power had already dissipated. He knelt on one knee and panted heavily. His eyes were fixed on Zhou Tai. Jiang Chun, seeing this, Bai Xiaoyan dashed over immediately to help Jiang Chun to his feet. The first mountain lord, who was about to come down, sat down again as soon as he lifted his butt. With Bai Xiaoyan, an immortal king, there should be no problem. Zhou Tai. Yang Ju also rushed over and helped Zhou Tai up. He carefully checked his injuries. Eldest senior brother, I'm fine. It's just that I've used up a lot of immortal power. Just help me up, Jiang Chun said weakly as he put his hand on Bai Xiaoyan's arm. With his current strength, it was difficult to defeat such a powerful immortal supremacy. Moreover, Zhou Tai was an immortal supremacy who had cultivated immortal techniques to the extreme. Bai Xiaoyan agreed and helped Jiang Chun up. Other than the 8th Mountain Lord, the other Mountain Lords were all shocked. They found it hard to believe that Jiang Chun had defeated Zhou Tai, who was a 3rd-level immortal supremacy, with his cultivation base of a 3rd-level heaven immortal. Even though they did not know what had happened in the black fog barrier, the truth was right in front of them. Zhou Tai, how are you? Yang Ju was worried. He did not expect such a thing to happen. However, he was most concerned about his disciples' injuries. I'm afraid I'll be a cripple in the future. Zhou Tai couldn't even speak clearly. Men, bring Zhou Tai back to rest. Bring out all the top medicinal pills and herbs in the 8th mountain. Yang Ju shouted at the door. A few disciples of the 8th mountain quickly ran in and carried him away. Yang Ju turned around and stared at Jiang Chun. 8th Mountain Lord, according to the bet, I've defeated Zhou Tai. Not only do you have to support me unconditionally, you don't have to return the immortal jades and Wuji stones, right? Jiang Chun gave him a very bright smile, but his pale face showed that his situation was not very good. I admit defeat. The 8th Mountain Lord waved his sleeves, and his entire body transformed into a stream of light as he left the main hall. He wanted to check on his disciple's condition, and he was not in the mood to stay here. Following the shocked gazes of the other mountain chieftains, the first mountain chieftain slowly sucked in a breath of cold air and said calmly, "Today's meeting ends here. 7 days later, gather at my place again to discuss how to solve this problem." All right. The other mountain chieftain stood up and glanced at Jiang Chun at the same time, then left one after another. After they left the main hall, Xinyu and the other two could not hold it in any longer. They walked up to Jiang Chun. "Brat, we can handle these mountain chieftains. Since when did we need you to stand out?" The first mountain chieftain grabbed Jiang Chun's wrist and injected a strand of pure, immortal energy into him. At the same time, He frowned and reprimanded him. If you have the immortal jades and Wuji stones that you return to them, why don't you just give them to me? Jiang Chen smiled weakly and said something that made their faces darken. If it weren't for your injuries, I would teach you a lesson right now. Xinyu pointed at Jiang Chen's nose and reprimanded him. Before Jiang Chen could finish his words, he fell onto Bai Xiaoyan. Jiang Chen, Xinyu was shocked. He's fine. It's just that his immortal energy was exhausted, and he fainted from exhaustion. He'll be fine after resting for a while. Bai Xiaoyan carried Jiang Chen on her back and said, "Let him go back to the 9th mountain to rest. Xinyu, please bring him some good things to nourish him." "No problem, we still have some in the 9th mountain." Xinyu nodded quickly. "I'll send someone to send some over later." Xinyu said, "White Immortal King, please take good care of him." The first mountain chieftain looked at Bai Xiaoyan. She was busy investigating the whereabouts of the Black Sect leader and the Black Cloud sect. She could not do anything else. "All right, then we'll return to the 9th mountain first." Bai Xiaoyan nodded and walked out of the main hall with Jiang Chen on her back. Xinyu, Huafu, who was holding Hikari's hand, and Lil Ape, who was about to turn into a giant ape, followed behind her. For streams of light left the mountain almost at the same time. Looking at the empty main hall, the first mountain chieftain sighed. "I didn't expect him to be able to use such a powerful barrier. He really defeated Zhou Tai. Almost made a move just now." The first mountain chieftain put her hands on her hips. Jiang Chen's character was usually unruly, but at critical moments, he was unexpected. It was indeed very similar to Wan Cheng. "Me too," Xinyu added. "Jiang Chen is still the same as before. He always brings us surprises." In a room on the 9th mountain, this was Xinyu's room. Usually, no one could enter except for Qingmu. At this moment, this room had become Jiang Chen's recuperation room. Bai Xiaoyan wanted to go in to take care of him, but she was stopped by Xinyu outside and could only be the doorkeeper. Xinyu was responsible for taking care of Jiang Chen alone. She fetched water, gave him medicine, and wiped his body. She did all of these by herself. Occasionally, Wei Yu would come over to take care of Jiang Chen with her, but most of the time, she was alone. At this moment, Bai Xiaoyan was standing at the door. "White Immortal King, please go get a basin of hot water. Pour this basin away." Xinyu walked out of the room and handed the basin of water to Bai Xiaoyan. Although she called him White Immortal King, when she ordered him, it was as if she was ordering her disciple. "Martial Ant, do you think Master will get better?" Hikari followed behind Bai Xiaoyan like a follower. "Don't worry, he will be fine," Bai Xiaoyan replied with a smile. If Jiang Chen's life was really in danger, the White Immortal King would probably turn back immediately. "Then which one is Master's wife?" Hikari raised her little face. "You're just a 12 or 13-year-old girl. How would you know this?" This question stumped Bai Xiaoyan. "Why wouldn't I know?" Hikari put her hands on her hips. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Xinyu. "Then let me tell you, these people could be your master's wife." Bai Xiaoyan revealed a strange smile. As the eldest senior brother, he could see through Jiang Chen very clearly. Chapter 1655. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. While Jiang Chen was recuperating, the first mountain master gathered the other 8 mountain masters again. This time, no one objected and no one mentioned what Jiang Chen had done in Kunlun Mountain. The first mountain master also told them everything that he had found out. However, after Jiang Chen had been unconscious for more than 10 days, an extremely powerful aura descended upon Kunlun Mountain. The appearance of this person caused the 9 mountain masters of Kunlun Mountain to appear at the same time. However, when they gathered at the entrance of the mountain, the aura disappeared. Only Bai Xiaoyan and Bai Fengyu could sense who it was. When this person entered the 9th mountain, the first person he met was Xinyu. "What are you doing here?" Xinyu frowned as she looked at the man in white robes in front of her. "9th mountain master, you look like Jiang Chen's wife," the man said with a smile when he saw Xinyu holding a basin of water and carrying Jiang Chen's dried clothes. "You!" Xinyu was furious, but she could not do anything. "Don't worry, I'm just here to take a look. Just don't tell anyone about me." The man waved his hand, and went into Xianyu's room. Looking at the man's back, Xianyu wanted to be angry, but she could not do anything. She was no match for this man, and he did not seem to have any hostility. The man stayed in her room for 2 to 3 days. One day, when it was dark, Jiang Chen opened his eyes and woke up. When Jiang Chen saw who was in front of him, he was shocked and quickly sat up. "Master, why are you here? Ha! You used all your strength to fight and ended up in a state where your immortal power is almost depleted. Of course, I have to come and see what's going on." Bai Xianling smiled and took out a red elixir pill from her sleeve. She handed it to Jiang Chen and said, "Eat it and your body will recover." "Are you trying to poison me?" Jiang Chen was alert. F***CK. If I wanted to kill you, I would have slapped you to death when you were unconscious. Bai Xianling cursed. Jiang Chen obediently swallowed the pill. "Master, have you found my mother?" This was the first question that came to Jiang Chen's mind when he saw him. Now, his mother's figure was still echoing in Jiang Chen's mind. Even when he was unconscious, he would still dream of her. Ahem. Let's not talk about this for now. I want to ask you something. After I handed the divination pavilion over to you, have you not updated the rankings for a long time? Upon hearing Jiang Chen's question, an embarrassed look appeared on Bai Xuanling's face. But she quickly changed the topic. "I forgot." Jiang Chen scratched his head. Although he said that he had forgotten, Jiang Chen's mind was not on it at all. He had become a disciple of the divination pavilion with the intention of getting his hands on the sect's resources. Now, not only did he have to bear the burden of the entire sect's immortal jades, if he were to update the rankings, he would become a tool. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Who would have thought that Bai Xianling did not care at all? By the way, Master, I have a question for you. Do you know anything about the outer region? Do you know of a sect called the Black Sect? Jiang Chen hurriedly asked as he remembered that Bai Xianling was one of the 3 immortal kings and should know more about the current situation in the immortal world. At the same time, he told Bai Xianling about everything that had happened recently. After all, he was Bai Xuanling's disciple. When his disciple was in trouble, he should rely on his master to solve it. I don't know a little about the Black Sect, but it's useless for you to know about it now. I'll tell you about it when your strength increases. However, the immortal kings of those sects in the eastern region sure have the nerve to call themselves immortal kings. Aren't they afraid of being laughed at? Who would have thought that not only did Bai Xianling not explain herself, she even sneered. Ah! Jiang Chen was confused by her words. Do you think it is so easy to become an immortal king? That shows something. Strictly speaking, they have only touched the boundary of the immortal king realm. They are stronger than the ordinary immortal kings, but they are not immortal kings. They can be considered as immortal kings, but they are only at the peak of the immortal monarchs. That Xianyi sect can be considered as a sect that is barely passable. As for the other sects that you have met, they can only be considered as average in the eastern region. Bai Xianling sat cross-legged on the bed. She did not care that the mud under her shoes had dirted the white sheets. I see. This was out of Jiang Chen's expectation. With his current cultivation, he naturally could not perceive the situation. When I first heard what you said, I thought that the immortal world would be flooded with immortal kings after I left for a while. Bai Xianling could not help but laugh. That Black Sect? I will keep an eye out for you. Thank you, Master. Jiang Chen cupped his hands and expressed his gratitude. You are welcome. It is just that I did not expect that you could reach the level 3 of the Heaven Immortal Realm in such a short time. Xiaoyan also told me that you have defeated a Celestial Prime. You are indeed the disciple of the white-robed Immortal King. You have courage. Bai Xianling gave Jiang Chen a thumbs up. By the way, have you found the whereabouts of my mother? Jiang Chen could not help but ask. It's a long story. Bai Xianling stopped smiling and said, Strictly speaking, I haven't found it yet. If I didn't sense that you were in danger, I wouldn't have come back. But since you're fine, I'll take my leave now. Don't! Jiang Chen quickly stopped her. The immortal world is far bigger than what you see now. What you have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. Bai Xianling waved her hand. After saying that, she turned into a wisp of white smoke and flew away. She did not give me anything to save my life. Jiang Qin's mouth twitched. Coming and going without a trace was the best way to describe by Xianling. Creak, hearing Jiang Qin's shout, Xianyu pushed the door open. Seeing that the white-robed immortal king had left, Xianyu was about to ask Jiang Qin if he felt any discomfort after waking up when she saw the footprints and mud on the white bedsheet. Jiang Qin. Xianyu's expression stiffened as she shouted, "It has nothing to do with me. I did not do it." Jiang Qin quickly patted the mud off the bedsheet and begged for mercy. With his current strength, he was no match for Xianyu. "Go and wash my bedsheet. If you can't wash it, you can forget about living in the 9th mountain in the future." Xianyu pointed at Jiang Qin and said angrily, "Also, what is your relationship with the white-robed immortal king? If you don't tell me, I will kick you out of the 9th mountain. I will explain it to you in the future." Jiang Qin quickly got off the bed. However, he had just woken up and his immortal force had not fully recovered. His legs gave way and he fell to the side of the bed. Chapter 1656. With this fall, Jiang Qin fell in front of Xianyu with his head facing upwards. His eyes could even see the scenery under Xianyu's white dress. White. His nose felt warm, and 2 streams of hot air came out from his nostrils. Jiang Qin quickly wiped his nose. If not for the white dress blocking his view, he would have seen a scene that was not suitable for children. "Jiang Qin, you are courting death." This time, Xianyu was completely enraged. Although she always knew that she was Jiang Qin's woman, she was indeed a pure woman. Even if she wanted to do that kind of thing with Jiang Qin, she would have to wait until she confirmed her relationship with Jiang Qin. But now, Jiang Qin was shamelessly lying under her dress. Xianyu covered her dress. She was furious and embarrassed. She raised her hand, and a bright light shone in her hand. Then, she chopped down on Jiang Qin's head. Jiang Qin instantly felt that something was wrong. It was a pity that he was able to dodge it when he was at his peak. Now that he was weak and his immortal power had not fully recovered, he did not have the ability to fight back against Xianyu, who was an immortal monarch. "I will spare your life this time. If you dare to do it again, I will dig out your eyeballs and tie you to a stone pillar in the prison of the 9th mountain. I will let you suffer from puddles of water and the bites of water snakes." Luckily, Xianyu reacted in time. She stopped her attack before it reached Jiang Qin. She snorted coldly, put her hands behind her back, and turned around. She did not look at the man lying on the ground anymore. "Hiss, what a vicious woman." Jiang Qin sucked in a breath of cold air. His originally handsome hairstyle was split in the middle by her attack. It was not ugly, but there was an inexplicable meaning to it. "Remember my words. Don't think that I am joking with you." Xianyu snorted again. If not for the fact that Jiang Qin had not recovered from his injuries, she would have chased him out long ago. Okay, I'll remember it." Jiang Qin nodded in agreement. In his heart, however, he was thinking that if he could see it again, if he could see what was behind the clothes, even if he really entered the underground prison, so what? After all, he had lived for several lifetimes and had experienced more dangerous things than this. If a mere poisonous water snake could kill him, Jiang Qin would not be lying here today. "What's your relationship with the white-robed immortal king? Why did he come here to see you?" Seeing Jiang Qin agree, Mystic Moon's attitude softened a little. As far as she knew, she had never seen the white-robed immortal king interact with anyone. Even if he did, it shouldn't be Jiang Qin. After all, what happened to the 10,000 Mounts Immortal sect was caused by the joint efforts of 3 immortal kings. "You want to know?" Jiang Qin got up from the ground and sat on the bed. "Of course," Mystic Moon replied softly. "If you want to know, give me a kiss." Jiang Qin pointed to the side of his face and said with a smirk, "Scram!" Mystic Moon's face, which had just calmed down, instantly turned cold. She realized that it was a mistake for her to be nice to Jiang Qin. This stinking man only knew how to climb up the pole and did not know when to stop. "Okay." Jiang Qin got up and walked out of the door, feeling wronged. "Wait a minute, you'd better come back and lie down. During these 10 days when you were in a coma, the other 8 mountain lords have discussed your matter. But before that, you need to represent the Kunlun Immortal Mountain to participate in the sect meeting in the eastern part of the northern region. Seeing that Jiang Chun was about to leave, Mystic Moon hurriedly pulled him back. What sect meeting? Jiang Chun frowned, and his expression became serious. It's a meeting held by all the sects in the eastern part of the northern region. The purpose is to determine which sect's new disciple has the highest cultivation and the strongest strength. This time, the Black Cloud sect will also participate. The other mountain lords have also discussed the countermeasure. They will also participate and find out the details of the Black Cloud sect before taking action. Mystic Moon sat in front of Jiang Chun and said, "When?" Jiang Chun asked. 3 days later. Originally, our Kunlun Immortal Mountain Zhou was going to participate. But unfortunately, you severely injured him. Now, only you can take his place. And with the strength you've displayed, the other mountain lords feel that you can achieve a good result. Mystic Moon moved closer to Jiang Chun. I'll participate, but with my current state, don't have too much hope for me. Jiang Chun waved his hand. He did not care about this at all. The 8th mountain. Zhou had been recuperating. However, ever since he was severely injured by Jiang Chun, he had lost the ability to move. Every day, he could only be taken care of by the disciples of the 8th mountain. Otherwise, no one would be able to bear it if he peed and pooped on the bed. Master! Seeing the person who pushed the door open, Zhou hurriedly propped himself up. As soon as he moved, a piercing pain came, causing him to grit his teeth and tremble all over. You just need to lie down. Yang Ju walked over quickly. When he saw that the disciple he was most proud of was reduced to such a state, he was very angry. However, there was nothing he could do. When they fought, all the mountain lords saw it. It was normal for Zhou to be defeated and injured because his skills were inferior. Master, I'm afraid I'm crippled. Zhou face was pale, and he looked very wronged. Until now, he still could not understand how Jiang Chun, a mere 3rd-tier heaven immortal, could use such a powerful immortal technique. He did not even have a chance to fight back. Don't be afraid. The 8th mountain has many hidden treasures. Sooner or later, you will be cured. Yang Ju held his hand tightly. What about the sect meeting in 3 days? Zhou gritted his teeth. Originally, with his strength, he could achieve good results in the sect meeting. Then his status in Kunlun Immortal Mountain would also rise. He might even become an elder of the 8th mountain. But now, it was all a dream. The mountain lords have unanimously decided that Jiang Chun will participate in the meeting on your behalf. It's also a good opportunity to let the elites of the other sects teach him a lesson. He's only a 3rd-tier heaven immortal. Facing those elites of the other sects, he will definitely be seriously injured. Yang Ju snorted coldly. This was also the reason why he tried his best to recommend Jiang Chun to represent Kunlun Immortal Mountain. He could not let Jiang Chun injure Zhou and not bear any responsibility. He even had to help him deal with the sects in the outer region. As long as Jiang Chun was injured or killed in the sect meeting, Zhou revenge could be avenged. Okay. Zhou immediately became excited when he heard this. This movement caused his blood to rush to his heart, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Coincidentally, a mouthful of blood that had accumulated in Yang Ju's abdomen sprayed onto his face. CK your mother. Yang Ju's eyes were glazed as the blood flowed down his face. He could not help but curse. Chapter 1657. Yang Ju did not even dare to breathe. If he breathed, he would smell the disgusting stench of blood. However, even an immortal lord had to breathe. He stood stiffly on the spot. In the end, he could not help but take a deep breath. Wah! This breath made him hold his stomach and vomit. Master! Zhou turned pale with fright. Ignoring the pain, he rolled off the bed and found a rag beside him. He pressed it on Yang Ju's face and wiped it with all his might. Bastard, if it weren't for the fact that you're injured, I would have punished you severely. Yang Ju's eyes were red. He was an immortal king, the master of the famous Kunlun, Celestial Mountain's 8th mountain. How could he be treated like this? I'm sorry, master. Zhou knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Stand up. Yang Ju sighed and waved his hand helplessly. 3 days later, Jiang Chun, who had consumed the medicine and elixir sent by Xian Yu and Wei Yu, had almost recovered from his injuries. As evening approached, he, Bai Fengyu, and the rest stood at the peak of the first mountain. Xian Yu purposely kept a certain distance from Jiang Chun. Let Jian Yun bring you this time. This is your first time participating in the sect assembly. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask him. The master of the first mountain looked at Jiang Chun with a worried gaze. I know. Jiang Chun smiled and held Hikari's small hand. He said softly, Master has to go out for a while. Stay here and listen to senior sister and martial uncle. Don't run around. Wait for me to come back and bring you a gift. You don't want me to go with you? Hearing this, Bai Xiaoyan frowned and stepped forward to ask. Eldest senior brother, you are an immortal king. If you go, it will be too conspicuous. Jiang Chun shook his head. Moreover, you have to stay here and protect Feng Yu and Hikari. With the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, what are you afraid of? Bai Xiaoyan did not understand. I'm afraid of the other mountain masters. Jiang Chun suddenly lowered his voice. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoyan understood. Jian Yun, don't forget what I asked you to do. The first mountain lord said to Jian Yun, don't worry, mountain lord. I will protect Jiang Chun well, and I will also investigate the matter of the Black Cloud sect. Jian Yun cupped his hands towards her and respectfully replied. After the first mountain master nodded his head, Jian Yun and Jiang Chun turned into streams of light and dashed towards the mountain gate. In a town thousands of miles away from the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, many people from sects had already entered. They were all disciples from various sects in the eastern part of the northern region, and they had come here to participate in the sect meeting. It was said that the disciple who won first place would be able to obtain the comprehension left behind by a celestial king whose strength was above the 3 great celestial kings. From there, it would be able to help him break through his current cultivation and reach a higher level. However, no one knew whether this was the case or not. In the past, the disciples who won first place would not reveal the reward. The only thing they knew was that whoever won the reward would have a great improvement in their cultivation within a few years. The champion of the last sect meeting was Zhou Tai from the 8th mountain of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. When he participated in the meeting, he was only at the first layer of the immortal realm. In less than 5 years, he had directly ascended from the first layer of the immortal realm to the immortal venerable realm. Did you know that the one sent by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain this time is no longer Zhou Tai? That's impossible. Isn't that person the disciple with the highest cultivation in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain? Could it be that he is no longer qualified to participate after being promoted to an elder? According to what I heard, he was severely injured by their disciples and couldn't participate. Kunlun Immortal Mountain has sent another disciple. Who is it? That I don't know. In the town, many people were discussing. As the champion of the last sect meeting, Zhou Tai was naturally the focus of their discussion. Many people were also inquiring about the matter of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Gradually, this matter spread out. However, compared to the fact that Zhou Tai couldn't participate, they were more curious about who had severely injured him and who would be sent by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain to participate in the sect meeting. When the sky was completely dark, Jiang Chun and Jian Yun arrived. I've already booked an inn. Let's stay here today. Tomorrow, I'll bring you to familiarize yourself with the place. The meeting will begin in the afternoon. Jian Yun brought Jiang Chun into the town. Up to you. Jiang Chun shrugged. Following the crowd into the inn, Jian Yun revealed his identity as the elder of the first mountain of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. The waiter quickly handed over the wooden plate with the room number. However, when he saw Jiang Chun, he was a little surprised. Elder Jian, why did the Kunlun Immortal Mountain bring a disciple with the cultivation of a celestial immortal this time? Little Fool scrutinized Jiang Chun. Even though he was just an immortal, he was still living here, and he came into contact with cultivators almost every day. As time passed, he could roughly discern a person's cultivation level with just a single look. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes looked over. It should be known that the disciples sent by each sect to participate in the sect meeting were almost all the top talents of their respective sections. Their strength was also around the immortal realm. As one of the oldest and strongest sects in the eastern part of the northern region, Kunlun Immortal Mountain had more disciples with the cultivation of immortal realm than other sections. However, such a sect actually sent a disciple with the cultivation of a celestial immortal this time. Do your own thing? Jian Yun frowned slightly. Yes, Lord Jian Yun. The waiter realized that he might have said something wrong. He quickly covered his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He led Jiang Chen up the stairs. Many people's eyes followed Jiang Chen. They really couldn't understand why the Kunlun Immortal Mountain would send such a weak disciple. Among this group, there were a few people with gloomy eyes. They were all from the Black Cloud sect. One of them was an elder, and 3 of them were disciples. The 4 of them stared at Jiang Chen. If it weren't for the fact that there were many people from other sects here, they wouldn't hesitate to kill Jiang Chen here or leave with serious injuries so that they could reap the benefits from above. After entering the room, Jiang Chen directly lay on the bed, completely ignoring Jian Yun. Jiang Chen, you have to be careful this time. All the disciples who came to participate in the sect meeting are around the immortal realm. In your current state, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to face them. Jian Yun took out a white jade bottle from his storage ring and handed it to Jiang Chen. The master of the first mountain asked me to give this to you. What's this? Jiang Chen got up. After unplugging the stopper, he immediately smelled a fragrance. The spring flower pill that is unique to our first mountain. It can restore the cultivation in a very short time. Jian Yun shook his head and said proudly, the other 8 sects didn't have this kind of pill. Since you know my current situation, why did you ask me to participate in the sect meeting? Jiang Chen smiled and kept the white jade bottle. Chapter 1658. Do you think we want you to participate? Jian Yun rolled his eyes and continued. The first mountain lord, the 6th mountain lord, and the 9th mountain lord have all made it clear that they will not allow you to participate. However, the other 6 mountain lords all believe that since you have severely injured Zhou Tai, you should participate in the sect meeting. If you insist on going on, it might affect the harmony of the sect. Hence, they have no choice but to give in. Then, what reward do I get if I get first place? Jiang Chen sat cross-legged and asked with interest. The sect will not give you anything. However, as long as you get first place in the sect gathering, it is said that you will be able to obtain the insights left behind by an immortal king. However, no one knows if it is true or not. Jian Yun revealed everything he knew. He is a disciple of your Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Jiang Chen said with a smile. He is a disciple of the 8th mountain, not our first mountain. Jian Yun looked relaxed, but in reality, he was still somewhat dissatisfied. The inheritance of an immortal king. Jiang Chen was somewhat disinterested. He was a disciple of the white-robed immortal king. In fact, the entire Heaven's Secrets Pavilion was about to fall into his hands. If it was an ordinary immortal king, Jiang Chen would not care about the insights unless this immortal king was stronger than Bai Xianling and Xianjun. Seems like you are not very satisfied with the reward. Looking at the expression on Jiang Chen's face, Jian Yun had a strange expression. He didn't know what had happened to Jiang Chen during this period. However, in the immortal realm, immortal kings were still rare existences. Even in a sect like the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, which was established in the immortal realm, other than Zhou Kunlun and the mysterious 10th Mountain Master, the other Mountain Masters were only immortal lords. If one was lucky enough to obtain the insights of an immortal king, it would be a gift from the heavens for a cultivator. It's all right. I'm not that dissatisfied. Jiang Chen continued lying down. If he had the time to talk to Jian Yun, he might as well take a rest. You should take a rest first. Make use of the last day to recuperate your body. Almost everyone you're going to face is of the immortal cultivation state. Given your current situation, it's going to be pretty tough for you. After saying this sentence, Jian Yun left immediately. Bye-bye. Jiang Chen waved his hand. At this time, several people from Black Heaven sect are resting here. The 4 of them sat together and discussed what they had just seen. At this moment, a person pushed open the door and walked in. The 4 of them immediately turned around and simultaneously circulated the immortal energy in their bodies. Their past experiences in participating in the great sect meetings told them that those who suddenly visited were definitely not good people. They were either here for revenge or to steal. Who is it? Sun Feng stared at the door. The person at the door was only a heavenly immortal, but he made him feel extremely pressured. Sun Feng, it's me. That person pushed the door open and flashed into the room. He was none other than Ku Yu from Tianling Mountain. Since Ku Sun joined the sect master of the Black Sect, he had become this person's puppet. Walking in the immortal realm with the cultivation of a celestial immortal could eliminate a lot of trouble, and he could also make the people around Jiangchen unable to perceive him. Sect leader? Looking at this unfamiliar person, Sun Feng hesitated for a while. However, when he felt the familiar fluctuation of immortal energy from Ku Yu's body, he knew who this person was. It's me. Ku Yu nodded. I will inject a wisp of soul source energy into this body. After a period of time, I will appear in front of you with this person's appearance. Sect leader, may I know why you are here in the middle of the night? After receiving a reply, Sun Feng directly knelt on the ground and asked in a trembling voice. The Black Cloud sect had been established for nearly 2,000 years. However, since he was a disciple of the sect, he had only heard of the sect leader's name and had never had the chance to meet him personally. Even some of the orders from the Black Sect were sent to the Black Cloud sect by others. The three disciples behind him stood stiffly on the spot, unable to even speak. You met Jiangchen today, right? The sect master of the Black Sect sat on a stool at the door and asked in a hoarse voice. Yes, we met him. The one who came here with him was Elder Jin Yun from the first mountain of Kunlun Mountain. Sun Feng nodded vigorously. Before they participated in the great sect meetings, they had already received orders from the Black Sect to secretly observe the people of Kunlun Mountain. Very good. What I want you to do is to try your best to kill him at the great sect meetings. If you can do it, I will allow you to go to the Black Sect to comprehend the secret methods of the sect. I will also personally guide your cultivation. The sect master of the Black Sect nodded with satisfaction. We will do our best. Sun Feng kowtowed heavily. They had never even dreamed of such an honor. Even the sect master Sun Lian didn't have this opportunity. As for receiving personal guidance from the great sect leader, that was an even more supreme gift. Although they had never seen it before, all the disciples of the Black Cloud sect knew that the great sect leader was an existence that was not weaker than the three great celestial kings. In fact, he was even stronger than the three of them. If you can't do it, there is no need for you to continue living in the immortal world. After saying this, the sect master of the Black Sect disappeared from the room, as if he had never appeared. A few minutes after he left, the four of them gradually calmed down and found that their clothes had been soaked in sweat in just a short while. Sun Feng let out a long breath. He didn't expect that Jiangchen, who only had the strength of a celestial immortal, would be worthy of the sect master's personal visit. However, he didn't need to think about these things. The only thing in his mind now was to kill Jiangchen. He was a celestial prime, and the three disciples he brought were all immortals. With this strength, even with the protection of Jin Yun, they could easily kill Jiangchen. Go out and keep an eye on the hostel where Jin Yun and Jiangchen are staying. Don't let them leave this place easily. If they manage to escape, I will take your lives. As Sun Feng thought of this, he turned around and ordered loudly. The three disciples didn't say anything and quickly ran out of the room. They all knew in their hearts that if they went to the Black Gate and received the personal guidance of the head elder, their status in the Black Cloud sect would rise accordingly. In the future, even the head elder Sun Lian would have to look up to them. In the sect, there would be no one to guide them. Ha! Watching them leave, Sun Feng laughed wildly. It was as if he had already seen that with the guidance of the sect master, he would become an immortal monarch expert, and then suppress Sun Lian to become the new sect master of the Black Cloud sect. And he also knew that since Jiangchen could make the sect master come here personally, he must be a thorn in the side of the sect master. When he fought with Sun Lian, the sect master would definitely stand on his side. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.